So, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for registering for this. Thanks to Chris and Ikechi in absentia that would also be facilitating this session. My name is Daniel Abode, and I'm on an European Industrial Doctorate at the Aalborg University in Denmark. And earlier this year, I shared a piece of my experience applying to PhD last year, 2021. Some of the good news, and this caused quite a number of people to reach out to me on Facebook, on LinkedIn and on WhatsApp, asking for a session like this where I should share my experience. But I know that one size won't fit all, one size won't fit everybody. There is a reason why I've invited two wonderful persons as well, Chris and Ikechi, for this event as well, so that they can share their experience and hopefully we can learn from them as well. So Chris, who you can see on the screen as Dr. Olalekan Akinsuli, is one of the few doctors that go as far as going for another PhD to get another doctor. So he is a medical doctor, and he was on the Erasmus Mundus program, one in infectious disease and one health, right? And is currently doing his PhD at Washington State University in the USA. Ikechi is currently in Canada. He was an Erasmus Mundus scholar for the program PeaceNet. Some of you might know him as well. And he will be talking mainly about application for PhD in Canada. So he will be telling you about the opportunities in Canada and how you can get these opportunities. So thank you very much for coming. This is how we are going to proceed for today. I will start with just one slide on why a PhD, which I think is a question everybody should try to answer to themselves in their room. And because this is a very important question. And after that, I would invite Chris to give us his presentation on applying for PhD in the US. This might take between 15 to 30 minutes. After him, Ikechi will come in. Ikechi is currently on another program and is planning to join us as soon as possible. So if he's able to meet up with Chris, Ikechi will come in and give his presentation as well on application to PhD in Canada. And then I would focus on application of PhD in Europe, which I think I would be discussing some things that will sound completely new to some people. But I think for some people, it will be more or less like re-mentioning what they already know before. So this is how the event will go today. And finally, after everything, we would have a question and answer session where you can unmute your mic and ask a question or ask a question in the chat box. So thank you very much for joining. So I'm going to create a poll while the event is on why a PhD. I'm sure everybody can see my screen. I'm going to make a poll. I want to know why we want to apply to a PhD. So I mean, there are several reasons why you might want a PhD or several reasons why you might not want a PhD. If you are planning an academic career, definitely you have only one way to go, and that is to go through a PhD. So regardless of how tedious it is, if you are planning to become a professor sometimes in your life, then definitely you want to pass through this route of doing a PhD, which we actually start with applying to PhD positions. Also, some people think academic route is the only thing for PhD, but no. In fact, more than 70% of people that actually do PhD work in the industry because of the departments in the industry and government institutions, which they call the research departments. This research department employ research engineers and research scientists. And since PhD is a process whereby you learn how to carry out formal research process, PhD candidates, PhD holders are always the best and the most fertile candidates for job in this research department. And the research department is like the bedrock of every company. If you find out that one company was succeeding 2 years ago and now they are no more in the market. It's because they don't have researchers that can help them to come up with new products or that can help them to make their products better. So also the development team, the development departments are the ones that take the research product and make it into something that can be shown to investors or that can be pitched to customers. And as why PhD students are always desirable here. In some cases, we have seen people that use their masters to get research engineer position or this thing. But in the long run in your career, it's not good. I was in a fireside chat with organized by IEEE, and we had these events where it was like a career talk where we have really experienced people in my field that came around. Someone like Ted Rappaport, if you're into wireless communication, you will know him. And that was one advice they gave. Even if you are not going into academic career, if you are going for research career in any way, whether it's academic or non-academic research career, PhD is just a must for you. Because without PhD, you can't really progress in research career. Also, we've seen quite a number of people that are going to PhD so they can get in-depth knowledge of the field in order to start a company. For example, most of us we know Larry Page, the guy that started Google, right? And his PhD was on PageRank algorithm at Stanford University. He did not finish his PhD. After doing the research and getting some really wonderful results, he thought, what am I still waiting for? He bought out and then he started Google. And Google is what it is now. So PhD is also an opportunity for you can dig deep into some particular topic in order to get in-depth knowledge and start a company on this. So also some people could go into PhD to immigrate. I mean, PhD is one of the wonderful ways to go move to a new country and get permanent residence after staying there during your PhD period. For example, Canada is a good place for that. Just very few people would do a PhD just to brag about being a doctor. I was having a conversation with an Indian guy when I told him I would be applying for a PhD, and he was like, wow, yeah, I think it's nice because if you add doctor to your name, Dr. Daniel, yeah, it sounds good. But I was like, why are you saying that I should go for a PhD because just to add doctor to my name? Well, I think Denmark is one of the few countries where you don't earn the title doctor from doing a PhD. They don't call doctor here in Denmark. So you can have PhD in front of your name, but they don't call doctor. And I actually support that because I don't want somebody on a plane to tell me, oh, please help us to deliver this pregnant woman. I think you are a doctor, right? So I'm not, and then I have to explain that I'm not that type of doctor. So there's no need for confusion. I think so much that the title of doctor should be left to the real doctors that can save life. And PhD, well, if you like to still be a doctor on your name, even without becoming a doctor, you can do a PhD. So these questions, this is not really something to joke about. I mean, answering this question will let you know if you should be applying for a PhD, what our PhD position should you be applying to. For example, if you are so much focused on immigration, before applying to your PhD, you might try to look for countries where it is easy to get permanent residency when you start your PhD or during your PhD process. So answering these questions are very important for even your search for PhD positions. The kind of topic, if you want to start a company after your PhD, then you want to go for topics that are vital to the economy now, not topic that you will have result now. You have to wait for 20 years or 50 years before these things start getting integrated into the society. So this is very important. The kind of career you want to have after your PhD, what you want to do with your PhD is very important for you to sort out before starting application. So that is that about that. So if Chris is ready, I think I am also ready to share his slide.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah. So Chris will be telling us about application of PhD to in US. So thank you very much, Chris. The floor is yours.
Hi guys, it's a very great pleasure to be chatting with you guys this morning. Unfortunately, I can't see all the faces, so yeah. Anyways, so I know so many people want to study in the US, and it's I had the same dream some years back. And while I was doing my Erasmus program in Europe, it was one of the things I was thinking about on how to get into US and doing a PhD. Contrary to what Daniel was saying about people wanting to get doctor, that's hilarious. Yeah, I think you're right. You know, you should have a genuine motivation for wanting to do a PhD because that will definitely reflect, even when you're talking to, as you're going to see in subsequent slides, I'll talk about some things while you're interacting with professors and potential supervisors and all that. Like uh, the genuine motivation you have for wanting to do a PhD would see you through those kind of conversations. If you just want to like become US citizen after coming here and then maybe getting married to an American or something like that, um, you will not have very solid conversations with people when you're talking about what you want to do. So it's very, very, very important for you to have that right motivation. All right. So to go into my talk, Daniel, next slide. So I will be dividing my talk into three major aspects, though I have a fourth one, but it's just like a prelude to the second one. So I will be telling you about how to build a very strong profile for doctoral fellowship. So I realized that most people have issues with getting admission into universities for PhD because they really don't know what to do, to package their profile, and then make themselves look very, very, very competitive. So yeah, I will be opening up to you what you have to do to make sure that your profile is very strong, and it will be very hard for schools to, you know, to look away when they see your profile. And then I'll be giving you like a stepwise guide into applying to US universities, what you have to do step by step, and the kind of pitfalls you should avoid while you're taking those steps. And then lastly, I'll be giving you golden tips, um, things I would love to share with you from my personal experience and stuff. All right, so let's start. The building a strong profile. Okay, so the first thing is that you must try. I don't know the profile of the people we're interacting with today, but I suspect we have BSc holders, master's degree holders, and possibly people who are even still in school who are trying to like get these degrees. So whatever stage of your career you're at right now, please try and get good grades. Back in the days, before we get there, Daniel, back in the days, people used to say that you really don't have to, disturb yourself so hard for grades. Just pass. No, if you're thinking about getting a PhD or coming to the US to do a PhD, you'll have to make sure that your grades are tight. Do everything you can, study very hard, get good grades. This thing will announce you to schools that you have this a couple of things I've listed. The next slide, yeah. All right. So what good grades tells anybody who sees your results is that you have very strong aptitude and you can contribute, you can bring something very, very solid to the table. And it shows them your level of intelligence. Forget about it. People say, most first class holders are not really that intelligent, and there are people who are more intelligent and all that. But how do you show it? What's the evidence that you're intelligent? What's the evidence that you have something upstairs? Like, you have to put something in paper. You have to be able to show people that you have something upstairs. So yeah, so good grades will tell your prospective um, institution or whatever place you want to go that you have good aptitude, you have intelligence, and you are hardworking. It's um, it's a very good signal to tell them that you, over the years, you've put in a lot into your craft, and subsequently, if you're given whatever position, you bring in that character. And then it shows consistency because if you've gone to school for like 4 or 5 years and you're able to graduate with first class, for example, it shows that year after year you put in hard work. So those are the few things that good grades shows to your prospective schools, wherever it is you're applying to. The next. Then you also need research experience because PhD is not BSc. BSc, you're basically studying and then you just want to study and pass. PhD is basically research. So you need to at least have had some level of research experience before you can say you want to do a PhD. I know I've interacted with people, some of my mentees, what if I'm just finishing my BSc and then I've not done any sort of research? The only kind of experience I have about research is, say, my final year project. There are other things you can do that I will talk about later. So you need research experience. It's very, very, very important. If you've if you've been in any sort of research lab and you've been able to do one or two research projects, it's a very good signal that you can reciprocate that when you're given a PhD position. And what that does, and the next push, what that does is that you have some sort of hands-on exposure, because when you get into the lab, for example, I'm speaking for STEM people. I know probably we have other people who are not STEM students. So, but basically, it shows that you have hands-on experience when it comes to research. It shows that, for example, I'm into immunology and infectious disease. It shows that you have some level of you're into the laboratory culture. You've been around the lab. You're not just getting into the lab and asking, "What is this?" You're looking at the microscope. You don't know what it means. You don't know what that is. So yeah, so if you've had some kind of research experience, it tells the people who want to give you admission that, oh, this guy has been in the lab, he knows the culture. And then of course it shows them that you know how to communicate scientifically, you know the right terms to use. And of course, I have put this one in, I've highlighted this guy, publications. Um, I know not so many people have been privileged to get published, you know. But if you're able to do that, of course, that's a very, very, very strong signal, to the person who is reviewing your application that this guy has been around research, and obviously he's going, because for most schools, I don't know what things in Europe, but in the US, before you graduate, you have to at least publish 2 first author papers. That's one of the requirements for graduation. So if you've been published before, that gives them a good signal that, oh, okay. So if he's done it before, obviously he can do that again. So the next push. So I'll put these guys here. Some of the things that you also need to build your profile. You need to have these soft skills. It's very, 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 very important. I know it's very hard for people sometimes to, I used to be in that level where it's very hard for you to communicate. It's very hard for you to show some leadership skills and qualities. But this is very essential when it comes to building profile for PhD. You have to, I don't know, whatever CV people prepare, you have to be able to show in your CV that you've had some experience in leadership. It shows the people who are reviewing your application that you have some kind of responsibility and some kind of integrity and stuff like that. The next push. So I'll put these guys here. There's this course that doctoral students take in the US in the first year. We'll call it responsible conduct of research. So that's like an emphasis on what I just said earlier. For you to be a researcher, you have to have that responsible conduct. Like you have to be able to, you have to have honesty. You have to be able to prove that whatever data you're putting out there is true and genuine. So if you've been able to show some sort of leadership skills before, these guys can trust you that if you're brought on board, then you can also manifest the same. All right, so this is not um, exhaustive. There are so many other things you can put together to build your profile. You can attend conferences. Um, you can, of course, listen to webinars like this and then try and pick one or two things that people say and then add it to your own stuff also. Well, I just listed these guys because they're very, very, very crucial. You need good grades. You need to have some sort of research experience, and also you need to develop your soft skills. All right, the next push. So, oh, okay. I think there's a slide missing, but basically, what's in that slide is telling you about application to U.S. universities. I just gave like an overview. So in the U.S., basically, PhD is for 5 to 6 years, unlike in Europe where you have, I think, 3 to 4 years, thereabout. I think the UK is 4 years. In the US, PhD is minimum 5 years. And the reason why it's 5 years is because the first 2 years is like master's degree. Um, you basically go through academic stuff again. You go through some of the courses that are very essential to your research. So some of the deficiencies you probably had before coming into the program, you try and patch up before you start the core research. Oh, okay. So these are the steps that you need to go through. The first is you have to scout for schools and programs. If you want to get PhD position, of course, nobody is just gonna nobody's gonna send a letter to your house like, congratulations, you have your admission and all that. So please scout for schools that fits into your desire, that fits into your qualifications. You can use Google. You can go to the school website. It's very essential. I've put these guys here, the Ivy League schools. They are the top guys in the US. They are very, 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 it's very competitive to get into those schools. So we have Ivy League schools and the others, like we say, so, but of course, you also see the downside of these guys. I'll mention that briefly. So after scouting for those schools, the next push, then shortlist your desired schools and programs. Like have at least like 5 to 7 shortlists. You can't put all the schools. You can apply to all the schools rather. So shortlist your desired schools and programs. The next push. All right. So then this is very, very important in the US. I will have other speakers talking about other places, but in the US, you have to contact potential supervisors. It's very, very, very important. Um, because how that works is this. I'm going to break it down. So in the US, you get in through a doctoral fellowship for 1 year. That's the way it is. So whatever funding you're getting in your admission letter is basically for 1 year. The university or the department is sponsoring you for 1 year. Within that 1 year, you have to get a supervisor that will take you up in his lab or in our lab and then subsequently become the person who is paying your school fees and or paying your stipend. So if you contact them beforehand, before you get the admission, it will be very easy for you to glide through that process once you get in. So that's why it's very important to contact. And then supervisors can also put in words for you during the admission process. Oh, I've spoken to this guy. I think he's a fit for our program and we should give him an opportunity. So, and then when you're contacting supervisors, please be formal. Don't be informal. Don't just shoot a very funny email. You have to break down your research experience, your research interest or proposal, and then tell them your qualification, where you've been, where you would love to be in the next 5 years and stuff like that. And it's very good also if you read their profile, so you know how to tailor your email when you're sending an email to them. The next push. Then you have to do this. You have to write standardized exams. In the US, you need the graduate record exam, the GRE. Also, what GRE shows is that you have the aptitude to sustain the 5 years training that you'll be doing in the US. So you need the GRE, you need English proficiency tests. We have the TOEFL and then IELTS. In the US, basically, a lot of people love to do the TOEFL because IELTS is, I think, is a UK exam. So I did the TOEFL, so yeah, whatever works for you is fine. And then some programs also ask for GMAT. And, I think in the biological sciences you really don't need that. So you have to write standardized exams and make sure you do very well in them. Please, is very important. So the next push. Then please fill out your application forms correctly. It's very, very important to, be very professional when you're doing this stuff. And the next push, I already put some highlights of what you might see in your application form. You see stuff like statement of purpose, research statement, personal statements. Statement of purpose is like motivation essay. Why do you want to do it? Like Daniel introduced earlier about why are you doing a PhD? Why do you want to do this? What's your core motivation? And then your research statement is like a proposal. Like I've done A, B, C before, and I would love to do E, F, G, whatever. And then personal statement is just, of course, talking about yourself, some of the characters that you have that you can utilize in the program to give you success in that. And then in the US, unlike in other places, um, Daniel, please, could you tell me when I'm almost 30 minutes gone?
Yeah, yeah, you are still on time. Still have, I
Okay,
think,
good.
10
Yeah.
minutes. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So in the US, there is something called application fees when you're applying. Unlike in, I don't know if that obtains in Europe and Canada, but in US you have to pay application fees. It could be as high as $150. Like University of California, I know pay close to $150. And some schools can be as low as $50. So it depends. When you're shortlisting your desired schools, these are some of the metrics that you should use also based on your pocket. So the Ivy League schools will charge you heavily because they know what they're going to pay you as stipend when you get in. So, and aside that, there are a lot of people who are applying for that program, so they really don't care. So yeah, application fees are something you should look out for. Um, when I was in Europe, I was doing a master's degree in Erasmus, um, joint master's degree in infectious disease and One Health, and we were getting stipend. When I was getting the stipend, this was what I was using some of my stipend for. I'm gonna tell you some tips later, so I guess we'll get into that. All right, and then you also need recommendation letters from, I would say, go for professors. Um, I know some people will argue with me on this, that why professors, but I insist, please go for professors because they have a lot of experience in that field, and they would they would project whatever message they want to send about you better than somebody who's just starting off in that field. And also go for people who know you. Don't just pick a random person, that oh, please, can you just shoot me a recommendation? No, go for someone who knows you very well, someone who can, maybe an average of 5 to 10 years or so, who can speak so much about your abilities and convince whoever it is that is reading that you're a good fit for the program. Oh, okay. The last push for this slide. So wait and pray for interview invites. That's like the last thing you do. It's very important to pray. I believe in prayers, so yeah. So wait and pray for interview. Once you get that opportunity to do an interview, please put in your very best. Don't take it lightly because you may never get another one. So put in your best to whatever interviews you get, and hopefully you will be studying the US. The next slide. So yeah, the golden tips. I think this slide is messed up, but so the first thing you can see this guys here. This guy packed all his eggs in one basket, and then when the basket experienced something funny, all the eggs are pouring out. That is to say, do not put your eggs in one basket. Please and please don't just apply to one school. The next push, please, Daniel. So please apply to multiple places. I applied to 11 schools in the US. So please don't just apply to one and think that I know some of the constraint that people have is application fees and all that. But if you're currently working, you can save up, and honestly, it will be worth it when you get the admission. Yeah, the last thing I want to talk about. So yeah, I put this guy here. Um, some people love to do things that they are not qualified for, like applying to Harvard when you know you don't have good results or you don't have very solid research experience. You are just wasting time. So please apply to schools that you know that you meet their requirement. Go to their website, look out for whatever it is they're requesting for, and if there are things there that you know that you don't meet up with, and you may never be able to supplement for with some other qualities, there is no point applying and wasting money. So some of the mistakes I made during my application was that I was applying to a lot of Ivy League schools, and then yeah, I wasted a lot of money on that. And then thankfully I applied to some other schools that are not Ivy League, and thank God I was considered for those ones. So yeah, most times sometimes it's not as if you're not qualified for some position. It's just you can just be unfortunate in quote to get into a pool of students who are crazy. There are people who have very badass results and badass experiences and all that. So it's very good to spread your bread upon many waters, and then make sure you balance it out. If you're applying to 7 schools, you can apply to 3 Ivy League schools and 4 other schools that are not Ivy League, and then hopefully some of them will consider you for interviews and you give your best. So yeah, that's all from my side. If you have questions, we'll answer those questions after all the presentations. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Chris. That was quite an interesting presentation, and the slides looks good in. So next we'll be having Ikechi. Ikechi will be coming in just now for his presentation. So Ikechi was in the BizNet Erasmus program and is currently in Canada. So he will be giving us a talk about how to secure PhD position in Canada. So Ikechi, are you here? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, please, you can have the floor.
Okay. The next slide, please.
Okay.
So thank you for having me here. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in part of the world. And so we'll be taking you through PhD in Canada, things you should know, how to find PhD positions in Canada, how you can build a strong profile, how you can make your application more convincing, and some of the tips you need to know during your PhD interviews. The next slide, please. Okay, so a PhD in Canada is similar to that you have in the US, and the system is basically almost the same. It's just the same. And so the typical duration of a PhD is between 4 to 6 years, sometimes 3 years. I mean, I've seen people that do it in 3 years, and it's mostly a function of your supervisor. Some supervisors would prefer to keep you longer. Some supervisors graduate students based on time, and some supervisors graduate students based on accomplishment. So, for example, for a supervisor that would say, okay, in order for you to graduate, you need to publish 3 first author papers. If you can finish it in 1 year, fine. That means you graduate in 1 year. Some of that supervisors will say, okay, this is how it is. There is a seniority in my group. Those that start later would not graduate before those that started earlier. So it has to be 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years. So once this set goes out, the next person will go. So depending on your supervisor, so you should make sure that when you're looking out for a supervisor, look through their website to find out the typical duration of the PhD. Check their students, ask them how long, what's the typical duration. of graduation, and then they will give you tips. Also contact the students there. So the minimum requirement usually for a PhD is an MSc, and on very few occasions, exceptional candidates with a BSc are considered for a PhD, but it's really rare here in Canada. Canada is quite traditional. And for Nigerians like myself, the language requirement is normally waived. So as a Nigerian, most certainly you don't need the language proficiency exams in any Canadian university. Now, the application fee for Canadian universities is usually on the high side, between 90 Canadian dollars or 100 to 150 Canadian dollars, depending on the institution. And unlike the US, which is more liberal with funds, Canada is somehow, they hardly, barely waive this application fee. So you have to consider that as well and save for that. The stipends typically are in the range of 20 to 35 Canadian dollars. And I'll use this opportunity to say something about the Canadian funding. Now, Canada is not as generous as the US or other places when it comes to funding. If you notice, Canada is somehow similar to Britain and Australia. The stipends are not so much as you'd expect. And this, you need to pay your school fee from these stipends. You should make sure you clarify that whenever you find yourself with the funding. The school fees sometimes would have to be paid from this stipend, and you pay school fees at international rate. So if you see that you're given a stipend of 35,000 CAD, don't just think that the whole 35,000 CAD would be yours to spend. Know that you have bills, school fees to pay, and usually PhD students are taxed here. So even the whole 35,000 will not get to you eventually. So these are the things you must know when looking into Canada. So the typical sources of funding in Canadian PhD programs are basically from the supervisor. Now, if you guys know how academia works this way. So the PI, which is the principal investigator, the supervisor, applies for grants and funds from organizations and the government. Once they get those funds, they hire students that will be able to do the work for which they got the funds, and they pay the students from those funds that they got. So that's why usually the supervisor is the major contributor to funds, and then the student is expected to apply for some external scholarships like the Vanya Scholarship, MITA Scholarship, and some other regional scholarships. But most of the times, there are opportunities for assistantships and jobs that the students can explore. But it's depending on the school, they are based on a need basis, and sometimes it's based on seniority. For example, in my school, it's based on seniority. Someone that just got into the first year PhD cannot get a teaching assistantship job when there are other people that came before them. So depending on the school and depending on the department, so these are the things you have to understand, and you have to know. Make sure that you contact previous students so that you wouldn't try to build skyscrapers on the air. So the next slide, please. So based on what I said, that supervisors are the primary sponsors of a PhD program. So the best way and the wisest way of getting a PhD position would be go directly to those who would sponsor you, and those are the supervisors. So the best way to find the best way to get PhD position is to find a supervisor and contact the supervisor tell them how interested you are in their program, in their research, and make sure that if possible you contact as many as possible, and so you have the opportunities of being invited to interviews and do well in your interview. As the previous speakers say, try to put your best. And the ways you can get a supervisor is through LinkedIn, through Google, through institution websites. You can, for example, go to McGill University, look for the people that are working in the research in your area, contact them, and hope that they'll reply you and fix an interview for you. So Twitter, some academics are becoming active on Twitter, and you can also find them via research conferences. And also another important way to find them is through your research papers. You can be reading a paper and see someone working on something you love, and then you can reach out to those persons and based on what they're working on. So in most cases, in most institutions in Canada, you are advised to get a supervisor before application. So in most cases, you are advised to get a supervisor. Now, one thing that I would advise you in passing is that you would work directly with your supervisor. So you want to make sure that you have the best supervisor possible. I know most of us now will be thinking about the fundings, the research and other things, but make sure that your supervisor is someone whom you will be able to work with. Make sure that they are kind. There's a difference between being nice and being kind. Nice can be superficial, but when you start working with them, you see that they do not care about your personal well-being. And you can't work effectively when you're in a place where the people do not care about your well-being. Make sure you look for a kind supervisor. It is better to find a kind supervisor that is not a research superstar than to find a research superstar that is not kind. You would hate yourself and you would hate your PhD program. This should be the rule of thumb. That should be the number one thing. When you're contacting previous students, ask them, is this person kind? And try to read between the lines. Some students would not give you full details. They will try to be diplomatic. But just know this, if anybody is working with someone that is kind, they would happily tell you about that. But when the person is kind of reserving some information, take it as a cue. And please take it seriously. I know sometimes we can be so, want to get this thing, but it's serious. It's very serious. And so the next slide, please. And so to build a strong profile in Canada, one of the things you need is a sound CGPA. I don't know why these guys like it so much, but most of the things, even for some of these Vanya scholarships that you see, they'll tell you need to have a first class. I don't know why there's so much attachment to CGPA, but unfortunately there is such attachment. So you just have to work with it. Even though maybe in your undergraduate you didn't get the first class or whatsoever, try to have something better in your postgrad, in your master's, and since you want to get into a PhD in Canada. But overall, as I said, the ball lies in the court of the supervisor. So if you can impress them during the interviews, and all these things would just be a walk in the park. I've seen people, myself and many other people, we got into this through our supervisors. I didn't make a first class, but I met my supervisor in a meeting, and I told her I want to work with her. And she said, okay, send me an email. And I emailed her. She gave me funding, and they didn't have to look through the fact that I didn't get the first class or so. So that's why I said it's a foolproof method. The supervisor is key. Once you get the blessing of the supervisor, you are as good as getting, you in fact, everything is settled once you get it. And so the next is also in publications. You should try to avoid them predictory journals as much as possible. If you publish in journals that are not accredited and acceptable, it's as good as not having any publication. So the next slide, please. Now, you need to make a convincing application even after you have the interview with a supervisor. You need to learn the art of storytelling. In your essays, you'd have to talk about your motivations. You do not just write a bland motivation. Even though you have a motivation, try to link it up with the story of a life. And I always love to address this wherever I go to now. I've seen now recently you have a lot of people now are thinking of postgraduate studies, and so you have a lot of unserious people that are not serious. and you see, you find I've reviewed people's application, and what I'm seeing is my own statement of purpose, my own motivation letter. If for those of you that know how graduate school works, plagiarism is a serious issue. In fact, it's a criminal issue in many places. So it's something that's serious in academia. If you can't write a basic statement of purpose, what will it serve you? Can you write a publication without plagiarism? If you cannot write a 2-page statement of purpose of your own life, it's serious. So most of these people, they use plagiarism software, and they would really, it would just, disqualify you even before you start. So for your own good, sit down and write a compelling story. It's so easy. Just ask yourself, really, why do I want to do this thing? It's simple. Ask yourself, why do I want to do this thing? I want to do it because I want to go to Canada. Finish. I want to do this because it will give me, I'll learn a lot of skills. It's as simple as that. You don't need to, it does not have to be something profound. I want to transform the world. I want to make sure that poverty, it must not be profound. It can be as simple as I want to improve my skills and position myself for better opportunities. That is it. That is what I wrote in all my modules, and I got it. I want to learn skills and position myself for opportunities in the future. Simple as that. You don't need to go to copy people's stuff and ask yourself, why are you not successful in so many of your applications? Copying is it will hurt you more than you expect. So own your story. Own your story. And so, like I said, frankly ask yourself the question, why do I want to do this? When you ask yourself the question, your motivation letter is set. It's set. Every other thing will just be an embellishment. So keep your CV simple and short. Nobody cares about most things. If most things in your CV are not related to the work you'll be doing in your PhD, just take it off. And they'll be going through a lot of CVs. So you want to make sure that your CV can be captivating. Um, it wouldn't take their attention away from the important things that should be in your CV. So make it short. Focus on the things that you want them to see. Don't just give us 100 pages of CV. And so you have to take things like the date of birth, the state, your state of origin, and all these other inconsequential details. They can hurt you more than you'd expect. So please take them off your CV as soon as possible. Another thing you have to do is to apply months before the deadline. The reason is because if there's one thing I don't like about application is the fact that I can't control. The only thing I can't control in my application is my referee. I can control every other thing but my referee. So that which you can't control, do it early so that it won't disturb your application. So that's my advice. You don't need to complete the application before you submit your referee. That should be the first thing I do. So in the website, just scroll to the referee area, include your referee, then go back to the beginning to start applying so that it will give them time to submit their referees and their references before the deadline. So the final slide, that's the PhD interviews. You should do your due diligence. You should show that you really want this thing. The first way to do it is to be fully aware of the supervisor's research work. You do not have to do a lot of work on this. Simply go through their website, go through their Google Scholar, try to read some of their recent papers. You don't have to go into the details. I tell you, you can just, from the abstract, the conclusions and the introductions, you can get the core of the gist. Then just breeze through the methodology section. Just look at the principles, the setups. You don't need to go into the details. In fact, you're going to a PhD to learn. Nobody expects you to know what you want to do. You're going there to learn. If you already know it, you shouldn't be doing a PhD. So that is it. So don't expect something so complex. Just go and learn the basics of what they're doing. That should be enough to prepare you for a PhD interview. And you should expect questions on your motivation. Now, you see, if you have complete somebody's motivation, it is impossible to convincingly talk about your own motivation in the PhD interview. And so that's why you have to know your motivation, be true to yourself, I tell you, please be true to yourself, and you have to be able to passionately talk about your motivation, why you want to do what you want to do, please, and try to make sure that your motivation aligns with the project, so that you won't look like someone who is not a fit for the particular project. So link your experiences with the project. Revise your previous thesis. Usually, when you in this interview, they would like to know about the previous things you did. And so you should talk about your previous work, your previous bachelor's thesis. If you have any publications whatsoever, you should be able to talk about it. So just the human brain is not a filing cabinet. You tend to forget things that you've left for a very long time. So you just go back and review your previous publications and thesis. So it would help you. And so please be deliberate. Ask your now, an interview is a two-way thing. Your supervisor is interviewing you and you're interviewing your supervisor. Ask questions on the supervisor's supervision pattern, how frequent they meet with their students, funding avenues, and typical duration and research facilities. Clarify these things, and I'll tell you why. Now, I know some people, like there was a professor I wanted to work with. The person is like a superstar in the area. They're one of the best in the world, and they're in Canada, and I was trying to work with them. So, but later after coming to Canada, I met some of their students, and they are regretting working with that person. They told me that this person is good, but they don't even have time. So they don't even learn from the person. The person is always going from country to country and not giving them time. So that's why you should try to, before all these things, contact students, because you learn from the supervisor, and if the supervisor is not there to teach you, you'll be frustrated. You live in frustration. So you should know their supervisor's supervision pattern and know if it works for you. Some supervisors are like birds, and mother birds. They just throw the chicks on the air and expect them to learn how to fly while falling. Some supervisors are like that, and some supervisors would want to direct you step by step. So know what works for you. And if that supervisor does not work for you, please save yourself of most of us, we want to, like in Nigeria, we want to japa. We think it's the all in all. I understand. But what next? What next? You should think about this thing. You don't want to be frustrated. You don't want life to just be, to not be interesting anymore. So try to understand their supervision and pattern. The funding avenues. Funding is key. Without money, you'll be screwed. So make sure that you have, how the funding works. The typical duration. Yeah, some people want to so fast. And so if there's somebody, if the person tells you, usually my students take 6 years, please take that seriously. Okay? My students take 6 years. And try to ask questions like, okay, why do they take this 6 years? Is it that they are not working well, or you just prefer that they spend so much time? So I would prefer you, if you ask of my advice, I would prefer that you look for someone who is more interested in results than time. So that if you're serious, in 3 years, you can achieve all the results and go your way. Some people, you may spend 4 years, but at least there's something you're working towards to. This is the result I have to achieve. I need to make 2 first photo publications. So once I get this, I can graduate. If you do it in 1 year, fine. You graduate in 1 year. If you do it in 2 years, if you do it in 10 years, you graduate in 10 years. That would be the best, rather than somebody that will say, oh, all my students, they spend 6 years or spend 5 years. No matter how long you do, no matter what, whether I come to master's or PhD, whatever, you don't spend this time. So I prefer someone that is more interested in results over the time. And so make sure that you know the research facilities that are available there. Go into details. Like one of the issues I'm having here is that I in my school, I wanted to know if they had a research a fabrication facility, and I saw that there was a fabrication facility. However, the fabrication was for electronics and not for photonics. And so I found out that I need to be going to Alberta or to Washington to be doing fabrication, and it's not something that it's palatable. So go into the nitty-gritties of these things and make sure you find all this information. And I believe that with that, you'll be set for a PhD in Canada. And thank you for listening to me. And thank you, Daniel, for organizing this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ikeshi. Thank you, Chris. I mean, I've learned a lot even in this 1 hour period. Yeah, there's so many things to consider. So yeah, it's very important. If you've lost hope because you don't have the I score, or you don't have GRE, or you don't have money for application fee, please don't be frustrated. Please don't go. Stay with me. In Europe, we don't have too many problems, and we can give you a good time as well. So I will be presenting about PhD application in Europe. And believe me, we are also chilling here. We are chilling with the big boys. So there's no much problem. And things are going fine in Europe as well. In most European countries, you have a wonderful time doing your PhD here as well. So yeah, and believe me, the language is not a problem. The language is the least problem you would have. Yeah, so I'll be making my own presentation now, basically on PhD application in Europe. I said initially that I'm on an European Industrial Doctorate at Aalborg University in Denmark. European Industrial Doctorate means that I'm supposed to spend at least 50, I should, it's the law that I should spend 50% of my PhD time in the industry, not in the school. So because of this, I'll be having secondments in Nokia, Denmark, and in Bosch, Germany, which are really two really good companies where I'll be spending 50% of my PhD time. So but I'll also be spending 50% of the time here on the campus of Aalborg University, Denmark. And Aalborg is a beautiful city. It's a beautiful city. Denmark is a beautiful place. The standard of living is really high, and people here are really chilling and they are enjoying life. So to open up to start, I've talked about this in the beginning. So PhD opportunities in Europe, and PhD opportunities in Europe is actually not what many people know about. And I must tell you, it is vast and it is a lot. We have like two different divisions, PhD studentship. So PhD studentship is one that most people know, especially those in Nigeria. They know that if you want to come and study PhD in Europe, you have to apply to Commonwealth scholarship if you want to go to UK, DAD, French government scholarship, NAWA to Poland, lots and lots of different government scholarship around that you can apply to. And this scholarship will get you your PhD student, you can get your PhD studentship. So you can also get some direct funding by the school, which is popular in the UK. You have this studentship status where you get your stipend or your stipend per month, and you get your student visa and student ID card. But I won't be talking a lot about this. I know we know a lot about applying the Commonwealth. I'm sure the Erasmus scholars here that are current Erasmus scholars looking for PhD will not want to apply to Commonwealth or that. No, they won't want to do that. They want something more, they want something better. They want to earn salary, they are tired of stipend. And this is where PhD fellowship comes in. So in Europe, we have this PhD fellowship for job, and they are really, really abundant. They are offered by academic institutions across Europe, including UK, as research job. So technically, you are not a student, you are a staff. And because of that, you would earn salary per month, which is always higher than the minimum wage. In some countries, it's really, really high. In some countries like in Denmark, in Germany, in Sweden, in Netherlands, in Norway, in Finland, that is the northwestern part of Europe. You could earn as high as 50,000 euro per year. That is on gross. And you also have some other benefits if you're on PhD fellowship. For example, in some countries, like in Denmark, you also earn pension. And so you have this work visa, and also you have your staff ID card. So meaning that technically you are not a student, you are a staff. So, and it's really, really interesting. You can also get PhD positions, which might blow some people's mind. In non-academic sectors, in Europe, you can do your PhD in medical centers if your PhD has to do with health-related stuff. You can do your PhD in pharmaceutical companies, in big organizations, in engineering companies, for example, Nokia, Total, oil and gas. So these companies in Europe actually take PhD students. You wonder how can you do your PhD in a company? So this exists in Europe. You can do your PhD in a company, although the company will enroll you as a student, or they call them industrial PhD fellows in their partner universities that will issue your certificate. So, but yeah, you do your carry out all your research, working with the researchers in this company. And this is really fantastic, especially if you are planning to get research engineer job or research scientist job after your PhD. And this also applies to those in social sciences as well. You can find social science institutions that are not academic, but that offer PhD positions in Europe. And also another popular source is this Marie Curie Fellowship. It is an European training network. Is some people say is the best PhD to do in Europe. It's really, really nice. You get really good pay, allowance, so many things, and it's really, really nice. But yeah, it's also quite competitive, but maybe not so competitive because in most cases, most Europeans that are in their country are not able to apply to this Marie Curie Fellowship because one of the minimum requirements to apply for Marie Curie Fellowship is that in the country where you are applying, you must not have stayed in that country more than 1 year. So that basically disqualifies the citizens of that country and leave the position open to foreigner. So it's a really juicy program by the EU. It's also available for postdoctorates. So like I said, you can do your PhD in non-academic sectors. In companies, you can also do them in full research institutions. For example, you have NASA in the US. If NASA was in Europe, you can do your PhD in NASA. But NASA is not in Europe. We have several other government-owned research institutions across Europe, some by the European Union, some by the state, by the country. For example, CNRS is in France. It's a really big research institute with tens and thousands of researchers. You can do your PhD there. Max Planck Institute is in Germany, and also it's a really nice institute for PhD. CNIT is another wonderful one. CNIT is another wonderful one. CNIT is in Italy. So I can just show you these sites and use. I would later share. Yeah, I will later share this site. So for example, this site can show you list of institutions. So you can see non-academic institutions apart from academic institutions. For example, if you do this, you can see government-owned institutions. You can do your PhD in any of these institutions. And these institutions have PhD positions every year. So for example, this was the CNRS I talked about. We have MOTS, we have Max Planck. If you something like European Bioinformatics Institution. You can also sort by your subject area. For example, if my subject area is chemistry, I can sort, and then you can see some of these institutions as well that have laboratories that also do with chemistry, and you can do your PhD there. So you don't have to necessarily do your PhD in this school in Europe. So if you check for companies as well, you can see several companies. Thales, France is a very nice place for PhD if you're in my field. Siemens, Germany, if you're in engineering. AstraZeneca, Sweden, if you are in medical fields. So several companies, for example, I did an interview. So I will be doing part of my PhD at Bosch. I did an interview with, this is Total France, this is Total Oil and Gas. So you can do your PhD in these companies, they have PhD positions in Europe, and it's really, really interesting. So we are back to the slide. So these are the kind of PhD opportunities that you can get in Europe, and I think they are mind-blowing, and they are really, really interesting. So building a strong profile for a PhD position, I think this is very important. When I knew I was going to be applying for PhD positions, there were some things I started doing when I started my master's just to put myself in a good position for competitive PhD positions. One of the things I did was to search for the type of PhD positions I want to apply to, and then I make a list of the knowledge and the skills requirements. So I started doing some online courses. I did quite a lot of online courses. I do most of my online courses on Coursera. You can get, you can do it for free. There's a way, there's something you can apply for, the kind of funding or something on Coursera that allow you to do your courses for free and get a certificate. It is very easy. They normally grant it. So it's very good if you can do this. This can really help you to optimize your CV, add new things to your CV, add the kind of knowledge set and kind of skill set that is required for the PhD positions you'll be applying to. And that can really help you a lot when you start making your application. And just like Chris said, research experience is vital. If you're not on a research internship, or you can try to volunteer for research contributions, just work with any of your lecturers that are into the type of research you like. Let them know you are trying to gain some experience in this field if they can let you tag along with them. So you can get some of this experience and add it to your CV. It is very good. I know a friend that did this, and I think it was something really good, something that really improved this profile. And the earlier you can start doing this, the better. Attend conferences is a very conferences is a very good place to meet your potential supervisor. If you can meet your potential supervisor in the conference, whether it's a webinar or offline, you can be sure that you can create a kind of rapport that can actually lead to you getting funding, even if it is US or Canada. It's a very good way to start to meet with supervisors, potential supervisors, and get their attention. You can meet with them in conferences. So publications, formal publication is very good. You can make some journal publications, conference papers, but even if you don't have this does not limit you. Like I said, in Europe, we don't discriminate a lot. We give opportunities to many people. And then if you don't have formal publications, you can also have informal publications. For example, your LinkedIn posts, blog posts, Medium posts. If you really understand this field, you can make some write-up about what is happening in the field, post about it. You can add some of this to your CV, and this can actually show that you are active and you have current knowledge of what is going on in the field. Also, tutorials on things like Medium as well is really nice. So these are like informal publications that you can engage yourself in. Also, optimize your LinkedIn profiles. I think is very important because almost all the PhD positions I apply to, they always come back to check my LinkedIn profile as if they're trying to do some background check. I know LinkedIn will always tell you if when people check your profile. At times it will even give you the person's name. So at times I know, so these people are already checking me out. So that is good. So optimize your LinkedIn profile so that when they come, when they are looking for you, don't be. I don't want to use the word blind. Don't have a blind profile. That the only thing people say about you is your CV. If these people want to find out other things about you, then they try to search about you online. They don't they don't see anything about you. It's not really good. So always try to, your LinkedIn profile is one of the places you can put all your professional and development stuffs, and this can really be good for PhD applications, so that when they are looking for you online, they can see a place to find you. So that was another good thing I would advise you to do if you are applying for PhD positions. Finding PhD job positions in Europe, like I said, these positions are abundant, but the minimum requirement is master's. You need your MSc although you don't need to have finished your MSc, but you need to have, because when I applied as well, I haven't finished my MSc and I got some positions. The only thing is that when I'll be resuming, I will submit my certificate, my diplomas, and all those things. But you can still get the position even before you finish your MSc, as far as you will be available when the position want to start. So, and then you may want to ask, when can I apply to these PhD job positions in Europe? This is another good news. It is open all year round, any time of the year. It's a job, so of course there's no time of the year that you can apply to a job, anytime you cannot apply to a job. So these positions are open all year round. Like I said, that you are technically not a student, so you don't have like a resumption time this semester, that semester, in most cases. So where can you find this? One of the websites I used a lot is this scholarshipdb.net, which I think is really nice. If you open this website, I'm going to paste all this link. If you open this website, you can just enter for example, you can search with your research area, or you can just enter your research field, molecular, I don't know, okay, molecular biology. If you're in social sciences, you can also make your search. I wanted to search for social sciences, but I don't think, so let's say something like molecular biology. This is not my feed. And then you can see a lot of PhD, okay, you can see so many things. So on this side of the screen, you can see where you have programs, and then you can click on PhD, close. And for this, you can see several PhD positions you can apply to. This is at University of Copenhagen. This is not a university, this is a research institute in France called INRAE. This is in a university, this is a research institute, not a university. This is a European Molecular Biology Laboratory. So Yeah, so you can find a lot of PhD positions. You just need to search on this website. It's open all year long. Just use your keyword based on the kind of research you're looking for. Search here, and you will see quite some positions. If I want to go next to, and then another one. This is European job website. You can also find PhD positions there. This Oraccess is a nice website. You can also search with your keywords, and you can see a lot of PhD positions and even post-PhD position. For example, this is a PhD position in AI and digital twin in metallurgy. So you can search on this website as well for PhD positions. I'm going to share this link, so do not worry. So if you're looking for Marie Curie positions, you can find Marie Curie position in any of these websites too. But this is a very interesting website for Marie Curie position. It's also an EU job website. Here you can find Marie Curie positions. If you see anything like first stage researcher, that is a PhD position, or they also call it early stage researcher position. This is a Marie Curie position that has to do with something on mathematics and computer science. If you scroll through and you use this is about medical sciences, biological sciences. If you scroll through, you will see engineering and different Marie Curie positions. So Marie Curie programs are always like some institutions come together to form this program, like a number of universities and a number of government-owned institutions, a number of companies, they come together to form this program. And then in a Marie Curie program, for example, there is one program called Great Network. The name of my Marie Curie program is 5G Smart Facts. And in that program have some universities in the consortium, including my university. It has some companies, including Nokia, Bosch, some companies in Spain and in France as well. It has this university in Spain. It has so several institutions come together to form a Marie Curie program. And each Marie Curie program will employ like 14 researchers, 14 PhD researchers. So if you look to this website, you can find Marie Curie programs. And the funding, I can't say funding, your salary is really, really good. In some countries, you get close to 4,000 euro per month. That is on gross. But it depends on the country, though. It's very dependent on the country. So they are really nice positions to take a look at. Also, if you are interested in the UK, like just you want only UK, this job website in the UK is also very good for PhD. If you just click on this website, you will see a lot of PhD positions. You can sort by field, creative, I don't know, economics. You will find something. This is an error. Can come here and search by your field anyway, and you can, biology, and you can, okay, I think there's something wrong with our website. Yeah, but you can, from this website, search for PhD positions as well in the UK. So it's really a nice website. We have PhD positions a lot in the UK as well. The only thing is that some of the positions are not so well paid. Like the situation in Canada is for some of those positions, you still have to pay your school fees. But for most of them, you get your school fees waived as well. So it's also really nice if you are so interested in the UK. So, but one of the things is this: during my own time, I found most of the positions I applied, even the position I got in the US and the one I got in Canada, I found those positions on LinkedIn, just on my own page, just scrolling through my own page on LinkedIn. And the reason why I'm able to get this is because of something I've done earlier when I knew I'll be searching for a PhD degree. And this was the fact that I tried to build my network. I connected to several professors and several researchers in my field, both in the US, in Canada, in Europe. I go through, in my field, we have this IEEE. I go to IEEE, look for the names of researchers in the field that I want, and I connect with them on LinkedIn. And if you're connecting with them on LinkedIn, try to do it on your desktop so that you can, because if you connect on desktop, you are able to add these extra notes telling the person why you are connecting. So just say that, hello, Professor, I'm so person, and I love your research. I would like to be connected with you. And by doing this, I was able to connect to lots and lots of researchers in my feed. So when these people have positions, they post it on LinkedIn, and then I just come across it. At times when their friends post a position, they like it because I'm following them. I also see this position, and yeah, it's a good way to just see PhD positions popping up on your LinkedIn homepage without stress. So also make sure that you engage with posts that mention PhD. Any post that mention PhD, just click like on it, so that by so doing you are telling the algorithm that anything that has PhD in it, just bring it to my homepage. So that is one trick you can use, and it's really nice. If you are unable to connect with professors and researchers in your field, maybe you search for their name on LinkedIn, and it showed you their profile, but you can't connect. This can be because you don't have enough people in your connection. Because in LinkedIn we have what they call second connection. Second connection are your first connection are people that you are connected to. Your second connection are people that are connected to people you are connected to, and your third connection are people that are connected. You understand the chain. But if somebody is beyond your thought connection, you cannot connect with this person. And this is always because your profile is not optimized and you are not connecting with people enough on LinkedIn. So to solve that problem, I would just advise that connect on LinkedIn. Start by connecting with people that LinkedIn will suggest for you. LinkedIn will suggest people that work in the same place you've worked, people that school in the same place you school. Try to connect with these people. And from them, build your connection list until you have this robust connection base that will allow you to have most of these researchers and this professor as at least your third connection, so that you can be able to connect with them. For applying in Europe, also application to PhD in Europe is not tedious. You don't need to go through the filling of documents like you would do applying to US. In most cases, you just need your CV, you need your cover letter, you need your transcripts, and you need your ID card, like your passport. Some also might require your diploma, but if you don't have your diploma, you can always, for example, if you don't have your master's ready yet, you can always apply still. Recommendation letter, most times it's not compulsory to submit the recommendation letter. They normally request that you have it in your CV, the name of those that you can contact. You should have that, the contact details of your referees. You should have it in your CV. So, but for me, I have one of my referees that gave me a recommendation letter, one of my professors in France, and I always use it, I always submit it. I tell them not to contact him. If they want to contact someone, they should contact, I always write this in my CV. They only contact my current supervisor and get a recommendation from him. Also, in some cases, you might need to write research proposal. This is not so common. I will talk about this later. And also, English language qualification is, I don't think there's any position applied to where required English language qualification, but some positions might require it. But in most cases, if they know that you've studied already in English, they can waive that. What your CV should look like. My PhD application, because I applied to several positions, my CV was getting better the more I was making applications, and this is because of feedback. Also, I was working with, I was having some session with the career lead of my school. There's this department that can offer you advice on career. They can to look at your CV, tell you how to improve it. So in my school at Aston University, we had someone like that who was linked with us. So I worked with this person, and this person gave me tips every time on how to improve my CV. And this was what my CV almost looked like after so many improvements. But the first thing I will tell you, always tailor your CV to meet the job description. Very important. Tailor your CV to meet the job description and the job requirements. But don't lie, but make sure you tailor your CV to meet the job description so that you don't put too many things. Then, of course, you have all these things that will state your email, your address. Some of these things are not really needed. But for the first place, I normally have this summary. A summary is just like a short introduction, 3 to 5 lines. It's almost like your cover letter in a few lines. And I must stress this, that your CV is extremely important for PhD application in Europe. Your CV, in fact, it seems they don't even look at any other thing apart from CV. And I must tell you, in some cases in Europe, even if your grade is not high, they don't focus too much on grade. And in some PhD positions, they don't focus so much on grade. They just want to know your experience, and they want to know if you're interested in the research topic. So your CV is where you just have to show everything. On your profile, or this summary rather, you try to tell them about who you are, the relevant skills you have, and all that said. In a very short, just 3 to 5 lines, your achievements, your career goal, and just simple things like this. You put this thing in 3 to 5 lines. Don't go and be putting I am selfless, I am selfish, I am self-endowed, I'm this and that. All those things are not really needed. Just focus on important things like your relevant skills, who you are should be, what you are currently doing. I am a master student in so, and I have these skills that are related to the job you advertised. I have these achievements. I was this, I was that. I have this also number of publications, and in the future, I hope to become a research engineer in this field. Simple 3 to 5 lines just to make the person interested in you. And then your education and training, of course, you want to list your formal education. I mean, these are things I'm not really supposed to be talking about a lot. But one thing I would like to stress is this, related courses and topics. Okay, don't just state your education, don't just state master's, MSc in XYZ, molecular biology, and state your grade and dice or no. Don't do that. It's very important that you also state the courses you did in university, whether both your master's and your undergraduates that are related to this position you're applying to. And also the topics in those courses. You'll find out this is a little bit voluminous, but mostly my summary and my education and training always take 1 page of my CV. And this was actually because of the advice I got from that man, from the career advisor, and also from feedbacks. For example, initially when I was making my application, I don't normally add all the mathematical courses I've done in my undergraduate. And so when I go for interview, they always kind of doubt, are you sure you have this mathematical knowledge to actually cope with this research? I would say, yes, please, I do. I did a lot of mathematics in my undergraduate, but the truth is that I did not have that in my CV, which is really, really bad. And then I had a particular interview. It was a French government research institute, CELT. I did the first stage of interview. The man complained about this. Then I did the second stage. The person that interviewed me for the second stage was a final year PhD student. He's from Africa, so he interviewed me. I was like, "But are you sure you have the mathematical knowledge to actually, survive? Because in this topic, you need good mathematical background." I said, "Yes, I did a lot of mathematics in my undergraduate." He said, "But you did not put it in your CV." I said, "Oh, okay." I thought it was going to make my CV too voluminous. I said, no, don't worry about that. Put the things I know are very important. Put them in your CV. And so I did. From that day henceforth, I never got that questioning of whether I have the mathematical background or not. I put all the mathematics I did in my undergraduate, the ones that are relevant, not everything, the ones that are relevant to the positions I was applying to. Also, if you have online courses and professional certifications, related courses, don't just list the courses, but also list the content. Even for professional certification, don't just list this certification. Try to say some of the things you learned in those certifications. It's very important. I've seen most of the interview I did, the whole discussion is always about my CV. The whole question is always coming from my CV. And this is because it seems the CV is actually what got me to the interview. And I think you really need to work on your CV, make it concrete, especially when you're applying to PhD jobs in Europe. Yeah, so your thesis, you can put this under your education, or you can create a separate subheading for it. Your research experience, instead of doing just work experience, push work experience aside a bit. If you have good research experience, create a separate subheading for or create separate heading for research experience and put the place you did the research, the year, the different kind of things you did during the research, put everything, let everything pop out. Also, if you have teaching experience as well, create a separate heading for teaching experience. They love to see these things. These are the things they want for someone that will be doing PhD. So you should actually put that, make sure you separate it. Don't mop everything up in under work experience. Try to separate it so that it can pop out. Your publications as well, if you have publications, you list them. If you don't have formal publications, if you have some blog posts, you can put the link of the blog post here. If it's related, please don't put what is not related. If you have other work experience, your key skills, if there are some skills you have that are related to the PhD project, please try to put them. For example, in my field, for me, I was applying mainly to PhD positions that has to do with machine learning and wireless communication. So I normally put all my programming skills, the programming languages I can program in and everything here. Projects, if you have done some projects that are related to the PhD project, maybe lab work or school exercises or something that is related to the PhD project, you can spread them out on that project, put a kind of detailed description about what the project is. This is also very important. Volunteer experience. Yeah, I had one interview where the man was really interested in my volunteer experience. I think this is just in line with what Chris talked about. If you have some volunteer experience, it really helps to show that you are the kind of person that is that doesn't only take but always willing to give, and they want people like this in their lab. Also, if you have some awards and your references, the people you want them to contact in case they want to know more about you, to know whether you are real or not, you can put those people's name and their contact details there. So how many pages? Ikechi advised 2 pages, which I think is good. If you don't have a lot to put in it, you can, of course, you try as much as possible to manage space, right? To manage the pages to make sure that you only put information that are relevant. But my own PhD, my own CV is always between 3 to 5 pages. It started from 3 pages, but the later applications I made up to 5 pages. And I think those were actually the ones that ate really well. In a short time, we'll be giving space for question and answer. But just before that, your cover letter is what you will call personal statement, motivation letter, statement of purpose. For mine, it was always 1 page. I did not write more than 1 page for my cover letter. I think after I've noticed that in Europe, they kind of focus a lot on your CV. I do not put so much emphasis on my cover letter. So I make it kind of short, but I make it also kind of good information. I try to put good information inside the cover letter. I did not really talk about I've always wanted to go into research since I was in my mother's womb or something, things like this. I just go straight to the point. Mostly I had 3 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, I gave a discussion about my master thesis, what I was doing then. I link this discussion to my long-term career goal, and I tell them, and I link this career goal to why I'm applying to the PhD. This just in my first paragraph. In my second paragraph, I go into a more detailed discussion about my background. I talked about my undergraduate thesis, the research outcome. I talk about my work experience. I add some work experience related to telecommunication, as is the kind of positions I'm applying to are related to telecoms. I try to talk about this work experience and the kind of problem, technical problem I noticed, which I think are in line with what this PhD position is trying to solve. And I try to link this experience to the objective and expectation of the PhD project. The last paragraph, normally I just focus on my knowledge sets and acquire skills. I try to tell them I have this skill and that skills that are related to this PhD project. I have this knowledge and that knowledge that are related to this PhD project. And I round up with my long-term goal. So, but this is just a skeleton of what can be. I mean, you can write two pages or more, depending on the kind of person you are. So, research proposal and project description is something also. It's not so common. I only experienced this 2 times. This was a position in Germany and also this position I'm on. And some might ask you to write like 2-page research description of the project or like a research proposal. So for this, what you want to talk about mainly is the motivation. Why this project? Just to let you know, most of these PhD jobs in Europe already have topic. That is, they already have a project. They're not asking you to give them a topic. They already have a topic. You are just supposed to let them know if you like this topic or not. But in some cases, for example, PhD positions in Germany, they might not have a topic. They just have like a research area and they ask you to propose a topic in that research area. So in that case, your research proposal is very important. So I want to tell them about the motivation, why this topic, research challenges, what are the challenges, why is it that this topic is still a problem. You want to tell them overview of existing work, the things that are related to this topic. What are the things, what are these? So for this, you need to do some kind of research, limitations of the existing work, potential directions and ideas for improvement, and also the expected results and impact on the field. So don't expect you to have all the knowledge as if you've already done a PhD before about the field. but they just wanted to be able to come up with something intelligent. And please avoid plagiarism. I was having we were having a discussion during lunchtime with some of our professors and other, and we were just seated having our lunch. And one of them was talking about the way some people will apply to PhD positions, and they will, because in this school you normally have to do project description, and then they have people that will go and copy something online and just paste it, and immediately they see this, that person is already disqualified. So please avoid plagiarism. And finally, your interview. I did like 10 interviews. Some of these interviews are 2 stages. So that means if I'm to count the number of stages, the number of interviews I did, maybe I will count like 15. I think about 4 positions I did interview for were 2-stage interviews. So just so you know, only few applicants get called for interview. Always like 5 people out of several applications get called for interview. And for first stage, and if it requires second stage, always maybe just 2 or 3 people will be called for the second stage interview. So if you get to second stage of interview, that means you are very good, even if you do not get the position. But most positions that I did interview for really require 1 stage of interview. And the time is always between 30 minutes to 1 hour. It's only one position I know, the one at Huawei. I did an interview for a position at Huawei, a PhD position at Huawei, Germany, and the man really loved our conversation about some kind of knowledge set. We talked for about 1 hour, 30 minutes. So it was really a chit chat discussion of 2 people that are just interested in the same thing. But yeah, you might have some interviews that can go as far as 1 hour, 30 minutes, depending on how interesting it is. So the type of questions to expect, tell us about yourself. This is the question that will either make the interview or destroy the interview. Tell us about yourself. Please take this question very seriously. In fact, this question is the only question I tend to prepare for when I'm going for an interview. Tell us about yourself. So it's not a question where you tell them about, okay, I'm from a family of 5, and this, that, my mom is this, my dad is this. No, this is not what they want. I'm selfless, I'm selfish. No, this is not what they want to hear. You want to actually, you want to talk about your background. Focus on your academic background, your professional background, your research experience, the skills you have that are related to this topic, your future ambition. Make sure that when you are talking about these things, you align them with the PhD project, and you align it also with why you are applying to the PhD project. Take your time, 10 minutes. I think most times I take up to 10 minutes or even more, 15 minutes, actually talking about myself. And then most times, even after telling them about myself, that's always everything about the interview. They're always already, most of them will be like, with everything you've said, I think we are really, really, really interested in you. Everything you said already showed that you are a serious candidate and you are a good candidate for the project. So there's no need to ask further questions. So and I saw this in a couple of interviews. So please take your time to tell them about yourself. Tell them about yourself. Tell them about yourself. And yeah. So technical questions can also be something else. If you apply to any PhD project, make sure you know the basic concepts related to this PhD project. For example, for people in my field in wireless communication, you must know about the Shannon theorem, right? This equation that relates capacity of a network to the signal to noise ratio. You must understand the interplay between all the variables in this equation. So in your field as well, there are some basic things. Even in social sciences, there are some things that are basic. Make sure that you know all these basic concepts. These are the things you'll be learning since 100 level. So make sure that you know them. Be ready to defend the skills and knowledge set you highlighted in your CV. They might dig into your CV because, like I said, if your CV is sweet enough to bring you to the interview, if they love your CV, they might be curious about some of the things you put in your CV and ask you questions about this. And that's why you must not lie. I had some interviews where almost almost all the questions they asked, they were always referring to my CV. So in your CV, you add that you did this OFDM in school. So can you tell us about OFDM? So things like this comes up. So make sure that you are ready to defend the skills and knowledge set you have in your PhD. And there was a PhD interview I had with Huawei. This man even displayed a computer program, that is a code, a code of about, I don't know, some number of lines. It's a C++ code. And he told me that I should look through this code and tell him what the code is actually doing. So that is how technical. This was the second stage interview. This is because things have gotten tough. You have so many maybe a couple of good candidates, and they don't know who to select. So things can get really, really tough, especially at the second stage when it comes to technical questions. So be ready. So he asked me, look through this code and tell me what the code is doing. A C++ code. It was about some recursive function. I looked through it and it took me some time actually. I was like 3 minutes looking at the code. And he said, take your time. I was there analyzing the code until I actually got what the code was about. And then I told him, and he was like, yeah, you are correct. So it can get really technical, right? It can get really technical. Know a bit of potential direction for the project. They might want to know, for example, can you tell us like what are kind of things what are kind of directions you think we can take as far as this project is concerned? What are kind of solutions we can be looking at? So make sure you do some research about the potential direction for the project as well. Also, make sure you are up to date about the advancement in your field. Don't be a novice of the same field you have been studying about for 5 years. Make sure you know what is happening. What are the new things? What is going on? So make sure you know all these things. This is the last slide. Second to the last slide. And so this is how your interview might look like. So make sure you prepare very well for this. So, but if you can make it up to second stage of an interview, or maybe even get to interview stage, it means that you are actually one of the top applicants that apply, and you should be happy. You should be happy. So some random advice, like others have said, don't underestimate the competitiveness of PhD positions. I had a friend, he finished his Erasmus program in 2019, right? And yeah, he got a scholarship for his bachelor, he got a scholarship for his master's. Everything was easy. So he thought PhD was also going to be easy. So he applied only to 2 positions. And then unluckily for him, he got rejected for the 2 positions. And then Corona came in, and then he couldn't really get any PhD position. He was really stranded, no job, no position, no money is coming in. It was a really difficult time for him, so much that he had to come as Scots with me for some time. So please don't underestimate the competitiveness of PhD positions, especially with that we are Nigerian. We have a lot of things against us. We are not, don't let me go too much into that, but yeah, we have a lot of things against us. So make sure you apply to as many positions as possible. And don't work alone, make friends with other people that are searching for PhD positions. Like I said, a rejection does not mean your application was not good enough. Some professors already have their own master students that are interested in this position, but they still have to advertise the position. And that means you are still going to see the position, you are still going to apply. But if you don't get any feedback, don't so much think it is because your application is so bad. It might be because there's already somebody available for the position in the department. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you gained value. Next, we'll be having the Q&A session. I think you should be able to raise up your hand. I don't know if you can unmute. I think I stopped that somehow. So
Is it possible to see some of the faces? Like, let's
yeah,
know.
please, if you can you show your face a bit? Let me stop sharing. If you want, please, if you're in a good place, if you're not currently in the kitchen or in the toilet or something, if you're in a good place, let us see your face. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. If your question was lost in the chat, please, we might not be able to help you a lot. So please, if you asked a question before, please try to ask again. So I will be calling on Michael Ora Mulu. Michael, sorry if I did not pronounce your name well. And you can unmute and ask your question. Michael. Please,
Okay,
if
good
by
evening,
message, please.
everybody. Good
Good
evening.
evening, Michael.
Okay, I want to start by appreciating you guys for doing justice to this program. Honestly, I must say I appreciate and I've learned a lot. I'm like a new babe. I came in late. You guys have gone far already, but within the short time, I've been able to gain a lot of knowledge. But my question here is, I'm a fresh graduate, BSc, Computer Science. But it seems like all the information is being narrowed down to PhD. I'm actually interested in a master's. And I don't know if it is possible for someone to run a PhD direct from using your BSc, you understand? I don't know how possible it is, but I know that one of my friends did it from BSc, applied for PhD direct, and he's currently running his PhD program in the US. So I want to know the criteria for that, for running that, taking such a step. And again, if there are opportunities that are available for BSc graduates, especially in IT field, because what I heard, I think your last statement, you made mention of doing something in networking or something like that. I guess you're an IT person. So I want to know if there are opportunities that are available for fresh graduates, either directly to PhD or masters. Probably you can share for us and tell us the criteria. Then again, I also want to know if these applications are CGPA dependent, like you have to get up to this certain CGPA before you can apply for any of them. So these are my questions. So I hope to get answers.
Yeah, all right.
And I must say again, I really appreciate the lecture. It was worth it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you are welcome. So can Chris give us some answer on that, doing your PhD directly with BSc?
Okay, yeah. Thank you. So, Michael, I can't see your face though, but so yeah, definitely you can get a PhD position in the US with just BSc. As a matter of fact, you really don't need a master's degree to get a PhD position in the US. So in the US, what obtains here is they call it graduate program. It's not really, they don't really target PhD. They call it graduate program. So what they mean by that is once you're done with your BSc, you can apply into graduate school, and then at the end of 5 years, you'll become a PhD holder. So of course, yes, you can apply to the US, but bear in mind that you'll be competing with people who have master's degree, because there are a lot of people who have done their BSc, they've done their MSc, and they're also applying to the same graduate program. So there may be a lot of competition. And as Daniel said, PhD positions are very, very, very competitive, especially in the US. You might find that out of a pool of 1,000 students, or even much more than that, they just want to pick like 5 or 10. So if you have people who have master's degree and they have experiences, industrial experiences, that might limit your chances of getting that offer. But of course, you can do that if you have a very strong CGPA, if at some point you have some research experience, and if you don't have those stuff, the research experience I mentioned, I think Daniel mentioned something about doing some sort of internship or online courses, and so there are things you can do to supplement deficiencies you have, to give your application a very strong boost. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does.
You can also get master's position in the US also, but the crazy thing is that master's positions are not really funded. You don't have a lot of funded master's degree in the US compared to going the full length of 5 years that terminates into a PhD. So you might probably need to get your own funding for that, and it's a whole lot of money, So If you're applying to the US, I advise you to apply for a PhD program instead of like the 5 years graduate program, but of course, with very, very strong profile. So your application can be competitive. Yeah.
Okay, so if I am just to add to that, I think Chris has said it all. Yeah, Michael, you can also get, you can't do PhD in Europe without a master's. But yeah, like Chris said, you can do PhD in postgraduate in anything they call it in US with your BSc. But in Europe, there are several scholarships that you can apply to with your BSc for masters. Several scholarships, several government. I met someone that is on Danish government scholarship from Nigeria. I did not know something like that actually exists. So, and this person is in IT. So I was on Erasmus. So definitely there are a lot of opportunities, Michael. You can always key into these opportunities, but they are not there lying down for somebody to pick them up. You have to work hard for it. You have to build your profile. And some of the things we've been saying all this while are also things you can do to build your profile, even to get a master's position. So,
can I say something?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, one of the things that I would love to say is that you miss 100% of the shots you don't shoot. I know this can be very competitive, but you just have to believe in yourself in a way. You do not need, you do not need to be 100%. You don't need to have everything 100% in order to shoot. I secured scholarships in the UK, fully funded in Canada, in the US. I got one at Johns Hopkins. I got a lot of them. Looking at myself, I don't sometimes ask myself, how the hell did I get this thing? Johns Hopkins has an acceptance rate of less than 10%. I'm from Nigeria. I don't have any first class. I'm in a place where Nigerian, you know how the education is, but I just felt that, okay, let me try this. Let me shoot my shot. So while it's important to know that it's competitive, you must believe in yourself and you must be wise enough to know the battles you should fight and the battles you should not fight. So you must be wise enough. And if you feel that you have the guts to go for it, go for it. Don't be scared. Sometimes we look at, and especially in the US, you do not need to spend a fund for application fee. So shoot, apply for 100 schools if you must. So open up don't be afraid. I'm just saying this way, don't be afraid. The possibilities. Okay, look at this. I think of it this way. Many people are afraid and they are not applying. So since I'm not afraid, let me apply. So I have fewer people to compete with, right? Yeah. So just remove that fear. If you want to go to MIT, go for it. If you want to go to Harvard, go for it. Just take away that fear and go for it. You miss 100% of the shots.
Yeah, you will miss 100% of the shots if you don't take it. So Michael, you can put down your hand. And Stella, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hi. Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Stella, and I'm currently doing a master's in biotechnology at the Warsaw University of Technology. I just recently started anyways. It's in Poland. This is like my first semester. But I'm interested in cancer research, and I am looking at US schools, preferably US schools. Maybe the second option would probably be Canada, but first option is US schools. I'm asking, what I want to ask is, I know I'm supposed to get something like maybe some experiences, because I'm looking at getting experiences that will relate to cancer research so that it's kind of strategic. When I'm applying, at least I could have like basic understanding of what the cancer research leads to and probably find something that is related. What I want to ask now is, are there any kind of advice, tips that I should look out for? Like I said, I'm still in my first semester and work hasn't really started so much, like we just started school. I still have 3 more semesters here. So I'm looking at what strategic things can I start doing now so that I can be positioned rightly, and when should I start shooting my shots? Like when what's it called? Like, should I start maybe in my second semester, or should I wait till I'm done with masters? I just want to know how to manage my time so that I can be strategic enough. I don't want to make the mistakes I made in BSc, because I thought doing BSc I needed to finish school, do my NYSC before I start looking for scholarships. So I don't want to repeat that mistake again. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's related to my part, so I can jump on that if it's okay, Daniel.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so cancer research. I'm basically doing something related to that. Though I'm not working on cancer, but my PhD is on immunology and infectious disease, so I can tell you a few things about that. So currently you just had a master's and you're hoping to do a PhD. So I would, if you're thinking about cancer research, I would advise you get some basic skills that you need to work on cancer right now. For example, you can get a lab that is working on molecular biology, stuff like tissue culture, cell culture, and basic stuff you need in a molecular lab. If you have those skills, then you'll be at a very good position to getting a PhD in the US to start or to work on cancer. And then as regards when to start, basically fall admission in the US is around, if I'm not wrong, around August. So you can start reaching out to potential supervisors long before then. As a matter of fact, from now, if you're open to, you have 3 more semesters. So let's say later part of this year, you can reach out to some professors, talk about your research interests and some of the skills that you have, some of the skills you're currently working on, and some of your ideas. So don't limit yourself. You can start already. Okay, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing I think you can never miss is connections. So you can also connect with these professors as well on LinkedIn. This is what I know so many people doing. This is what I also did. You can connect with these professors. Just connect with them, let them be on your connection list on LinkedIn, so you can even send them LinkedIn messages. You can, when they are going to conferences, they will make posts about this thing. You can see those posts, attend those conferences, and even get to meet them as well. So yeah, connections, reaching out is, I think, is one of the things you can be doing now. Getting those lab experience. Even though you are in Poland, you are in your school, don't just think everything about your academics is what you do in class. If you tell some of your professors that are related to this research, you tell them that you are interested in just working with them in their lab to gain better experience, you will see how happy they will be to have you. They love that. So that is that. All right. I hope we answered your question, Stella. So Israel, you can unmute yourself.
We can't hear you, Israel.
We can't hear you, Israel.
I think you should check the bottom left of your screen. There should be something like audio.
He's actually unmuted, but I think maybe your earpiece is not that connected. You can disconnect your. There are some questions in the chat actually.
Yeah. I wanted us to take these ones that are here. Israel, we can't hear you. You can put your question in the chat in case. So can we hear from Abdul Hakim? Abdul Hakim, you can have the floor.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad I attended this webinar. The 3 speakers have spoken really well, and I'm glad I attended. So I've always been a great admirer of Mr. Abode as well as Mr. Ikechi. I would like to use this medium to thank Mr. Ikechi for his recent accomplishment. I saw it published on the Optica website, and I was really moved, and it resonates with me. My situation is somewhat similar to that of Stella. I'm currently a master's student in physics, photonics, and nanotechnology in France. So currently in my second semester, I would also like to know how to navigate the PhD space because I'm fully interested in it. Currently, I have interest in going into the field of fiber optic communication. So, but I have a background in physics. It's more of learning the photonics part of it, which is the physics. So, and I feel and I know I would need some more technical skills to navigate the communication technology space, which it's the area of research of Mr. Abode. So, yeah, so that's my question. So I want to know more about stuff that I could do maybe during the summer, during the holidays to try improve my skills in those technical areas to add to my field of study here, which will obviously be in photonics.
Okay, can Ikechi answer him since he's in photonics?
Hello, Abdi Hakim. Thank you for the question. You say you're doing your master's in nano, right?
Now, physics, photonics, and nanotechnology, it's like interdisciplinary kind of
okay. I usually say, or someone said, physics is a coat of many colors. Physics is similar to the provider coat of many colors. From physics, you can branch into any and anywhere because it's the fundamental science. It's a fundamental science. So your physics background is enough for you to go into optical communication. I tell you don't, and maybe unless you want to go into the engineering, yeah. But your physics gives you the understanding in order for you to be able to even go into the engineering. So I don't think you should bother yourself too much about that. And your master's is in physics, photonics. Optical communication is photonics, is a branch of photonics. So I think you're safe. I think you're safe. You should not worry.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Right. No problem.
All right. Can we have Shalom? Shalom, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Thank you so much for the section. It's been amazing. So most of those questions, I threw them in the chat, or I just thought that maybe I should just voice them out. And I made an application that was last year for University of Florida, and luckily I got into the school, but I was put on the wait list, and that was January. So from January, I've been awaiting for my application to be upgraded or just any information on it, and I haven't received it. I've actually kept in contact with some students working at the lab which that the professor I intend working with. I contacted them, and they mentioned that the professor hasn't gotten any funding yet. So during my application, I made mention of 2 other professors, but like right now, I don't know what else to do to help my application. So I'm really looking forward to join the school. I did my application form like with my BSc background to the PhD program, and I was successful but put on the wait list. So I just want to know like what else can I do? I have some recent things that I have done. I feel that would be that still aligns with the study I want to do. So I don't know, should I just jump back them and send it to the school, although they are saying I should just wait? That's my first question.
So Chris, did Chris get that question?
But what university did you apply to again? I heard something
University of Florida.
Oh, Florida. Oh, okay, cool. So if you're on the wait list, and you're being told to wait, usually applications to the US, the whole admissions and all that, everything closes by April the 15th, if I don't forget.
Yeah, that's
yeah, so between now and the 15th of April, anything can still happen. I suspect the reason why you're on the waiting list is because, like one of the things you said was that probably the PI or your intended PI does not have funding for now. So if it doesn't have funding, it can't take students. That would be too risky. So how many schools did you apply to?
Applied to about 5, and for each of the applications I mentioned, like PI that have related research area.
Yeah.
So even with this university, I mentioned other PIs that I could also work with. So it's not just this professor, but he's the one that has, like, the students have been able to respond to me faster than the other ones. And the PI closely aligns with my research area, like more than the other 2% that I mentioned during my application.
Okay, if I get you correctly, you are not applying into the lab directly. You applied generally to the department, right?
Yes.
And you're just contacting that lab because you're thinking maybe because you mentioned that man maybe somewhere, maybe that's why, and he doesn't have funding. Maybe that's why you're on the waiting list. So I would ask you to wait and see what happens until the 15th of April. Obviously, you can also get some other offers since you applied to 4 other places. So you can also get offers from other people. So yeah, just hold on. Let's see how it goes. Yeah.
Although I was considering if I should keep applying to other schools, and that was why I was looking out for maybe other schools still accepting applications and maybe probably funding.
So I don't think you can apply anymore for 2022 fall until if you're applying now, then your application will probably be for spring 2023 because the whole application phase for fall 2022 is already closed. Now they're assessing those applications and sending out interview invites and all that. So if you're applying again, that means you want to wait another 1 year. Just be optimistic and let's see what happens before the 15th of April.
Okay, sorry.
If nothing comes out of that, then you can go ahead and apply. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a question to Mr. Ikechi. You mentioned something about finding a professor that is kind and like not too busy. So there are some professors that I've emailed and there was no reply. So should I take that as a sign of them being too busy and maybe they won't give me enough time, like to follow up on my research and the guidance and the mentorship needed for the research?
Okay. I didn't say you should not look for someone that's not too busy. All of them are very busy. There's no one that is not busy. But the most important thing is that what are they spending their time for? Some would rather spend their time doing other things than spending their time with their students. So that's what you should consider. Now, when people do not reply, it could be any of the following. Number one, it's just too much work. I mean, maybe they're so busy with other things in their life. Number two, maybe you didn't craft your email properly, and some of these people, they use software that automatically take some emails to spam, especially maybe if you just do copy and paste stuff. These things are algorithms that work based on what's available on the internet. So if, for those of you that like asking what is the format for code email, that's where your email will end up in their spam and they won't look at it. Some schools will automatically delete it depending on the software they use. And so you must have to personalize this. And I say it and I'm saying it again. Please avoid those things. So that's number two. Number three could be that they just maybe they're not interested in it. But you just keep on applying. But I would also tell you something. This is how I got my supervisor, my current supervisor. I sent her mail twice and she didn't reply me. And then on LinkedIn I saw that she would be moderating a program, right? And then I went into the program And during the lunch break, I say, hello, professor, my name is Getty. Yeah, I've sent you 2 emails. I've not heard from you. What's up? And she was like, oh, for you to come here to tell me this, that means you really want to work with me. Okay, can you send me another email? I just replied to the email. She said she has seen it, she'll get back to me. And she got back to me in a very short time with the funding. So you have to be proactive about it. If they are not replying, you try doing what I do. Just follow them, hunt them.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll just appreciate like the links on some of the things that we spoke about just to share, so I'll follow up on them. So thank you so much for it.
Thank you very much for coming. And next, Olusegun Timothy, you can ask your question now. Olusegun Timothy, you can unmute and ask a question. Okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I really want to thank the convener of this webinar. I appreciate the effort, including the other facilitators, Dr. Dan, Dr. Chris, and Dr. Nkichi. So I will be directing my question to Dr. Chris. I'm a medical scientist with a bias in immunology. So literally, he also being a veterinarian and having a research interest in immunology, seems our research interest aligns a bit. Now, I'm at the cross border. The issue is that I don't really know what I want to go for. Not that I am an immunology major, but I don't really have a specific research interest at hand now. So it's kind of limiting me to what I want to do. That's my first question. So I don't know if you can maybe at least share one, 2 things with me that I can really direct my path in trying to grab a research interest so that I'll know supervisors that I can really work with. And being that my project supervisor then in the school works on another thing differently from immunology. He works on metabolic medicine, lipid, diabetes, so which does not really interest me. Then another question was that my experience, my little bit of experience I have in regards to research were on what my supervisor worked on, which does not really interest me and a bit parallel to what I'm having interest in, which is immunology. So I don't know. And since you said it has been said that anything that does not really align with our research should be removed from our work, should I tutor remove what my professor has done with me because they don't really go, even though we are still in the same biomedical field, should I remove it? That's another question. Then finally, my third question is that I will be going for a clinical internship in the teaching hospital now, and I think that will only suffice as my only work experience for now. And I'll be making my applications very soon, probably for fall 2023. And as you said earlier on, the pool is very competitive. So, and I don't think I'll be having any other research experience again. I don't know how will my research in my clinical internship suffice as a research experience for my application. So those are my questions to Dr. Chris. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks. Can I call you Timothy? Oh, okay. I think he's muted again. Okay, so just to answer your questions, I hope I will be able to remember all the 3. You said a lot of things. But if I heard you correctly, the first one, you are talking about the fact that you really don't know your research interest. Although you did something related to immunology and you're in the biomedical field, you really don't know what you want to do and all that. I think the very first thing is to get you reading some papers, because obviously that's what you, where you get some ideas or where you get yourself stimulated, to start thinking about research questions and all that. So start reading some scientific articles related to immunology. From there, you can pick an idea that would interest you, and you can look for people who are already working in that aspect. I think Kichi mentioned the fact that you can also pick supervisors from publications. You see people who are already working on something, and then you can, contact them either on LinkedIn or sending them an email talking about the fact that, oh, I like what you're doing. I think it interests me. I want to work on that. Personally, I think I had the same kind of issue during my undergraduate degree, because what I was working on then was not even related to immunology, you know. But I heard a talk on immunotherapy, CAR T cells and all that, and that was the beginning of my interest in immunology. So that's to buttress the point that reading up research articles, listening to scientific talks and all that can help you define your research interest and all. Then your second question, I'm not sure if I remember that correctly. You said your supervisor is working on metabolism stuff, and that's not really what you want to do. Then I'm kind of surprised. Why should you work with someone that you're not interested in whatever it is you're doing? If your interest is in immunology, why not just pick out someone who's doing that currently, so you can also learn some skills? And as regards the skills you're owning currently, it might not be related to what you love to do in the future. I think basically it's not really about the research question you're answering with those skills. It's about learning how to do them effectively such that you can translate that into whatever research question you want to answer in the future, if that makes any sense. For example, if you know how to do, say, I mentioned cell culture earlier. It doesn't matter if you worked on killer cells, for example, and then in the future you want to work on any cells from the kidney or wherever. Once you know how to do those techniques, then you can translate that into whatever it is you want to do in the future. I hope I answered your question.
All right, thank you, Chris. Yeah, I guess a lot of medical people would really enjoy this opportunity to push in questions. That is interesting. I'm just hearing cell. I don't know so much about those things. So yeah, it's really, really good. And truly, if what you are doing currently is not directly what you want to do later in the future, there's always a way to link two of them together, right? Even your motivation letter, you can always tell them what you are doing and why you want to do exactly what they are doing. So yeah. There's always a way to take advantage of that. I cannot give so much advice on that because I'm not in this medical field. But also myself, what I'm doing for my PhD is different from what I did for my master thesis. Like there are two different fields with two different problems. But I just try to relate, okay, the skills I've gained there and now they can be useful here. So that is all right. Oladayo, can you ask a question? Israel will be next after Oladayo.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it's a direct webinar to your topic, and you have hit the target. Anyway, to straight on, people have asked, so virtually my questions are penciled down, except this last one. To introduce myself, I run two master's program in the MENA region, American University in Cairo and KFU PM in Saudi Arabia. And I have about 10 years, more than 10 years experience in Nigeria, production industry. I actually tried, after being tired of the industry, I actually tried book, and then I discovered my undergraduate CGPA can actually take me far. And that was why I am here. I have used 1 year in those programs. 10 months from now, I'll be starting my thesis. So the question now is this. I am a father of 4 kids already. And I'm not okay not having them by my side for this 2 master's program. I really want to ask for either Europe or America, what is the possibility of shifting with family and having win some of this? To win the scholarship, I know by His grace, I know with some effort, with this guidance we have seen all around the internet and a couple of these, I always believe you can get the PhD scholarship either in the two courses I'm doing, because I'm doing two different courses in two different big universities. KFUPM is 163 in the world ranking now. So I believe I have a leverage to live anywhere in the world. So my question now is, my family, I want to take I said I have 4 kids now. So, and I really seek your advice. What do you advise me? I really don't want to leave them in Nigeria again for my next couple of program after I finish by 2023 December, I'll be, by His grace, I'll be through with my 2 masters in 2 universities. And by January 2024, I should be ready for PhD program anywhere in the world. Thank you.
Okay. I think, I don't know if Chris is married and he has kids with him in the US. I'm sure Kechi is not married.
But I can I can say something.
Yeah, I think I will
towards that.
allow 2 of you to advise him here.
Yeah, maybe Kechi should go first.
Kechi, yeah.
Okay. Firstly, if you look at the slides that Daniel shared concerning what about Europe, Europe is one of the places. For example, if you're a microcareer candidate, you have allowance for your children. You have children allowance, so it's important. But this is one thing I'll say Canada is good about Canada. Now let me say this. See everybody here, all of us are Nigerians, are we? Okay.
I think most of us,
Okay.
90%.
Okay, I'm just checking. Canada is a good place if you have a family. Now, this is how people do it. You come into Canada first as a student, and then you bring in your spouse. Your wife will be able to work as long as she wants to work. But you, because you're the student, you can only work for 20 hours. But you bring in your spouse, and she'll come with the children, but you have to go first. And usually in Canada, I think healthcare is free, and daycare for children is free. So when your wife works for 1 year, she would be eligible to apply for the permanent residency. So she would apply for the permanent residency as the primary candidate, but you would now be the secondary candidate. So once she applies for the permanent residency, you will be open to a lot of opportunities, because you would now be a permanent resident and she would also be a permanent resident. So Canada will be one of a good place for you to look at. So because, as I said, it has open work study permit for your spouse, so they can work as much as possible. You won't have to consider money for them, because your spouse will be able to work. And also after 1 year, through them, you'll be able to do a permanent residency. After 2 years, you become a citizen. That's so it's
good.
It's good. I mean, in fact, if you're coming to Canada, get married first. It's the best.
That is good. Chris, what advice would you give to him?
Okay, as regards doing that and planning to come to US and you want to bring your family and all that, yes, there is actually a place for that. But the only problem is that if you're coming to the US as a PhD student, you'll be on F1 visa. That's what it's called, F1 visa. And then your spouse and kids, they will be your dependents, so they will be on F2 visa. So usually F2 visa holders are not allowed to work in the US. That's the difference between US and Canada. They cannot work, they cannot even study. So they are just here basically to give you emotional support. So because the US system is very, very tight. So they don't want you, except the only thing that people do is, if you're a PhD student and your wife has maybe a degree or something, you can ask your wife to also apply and become a PhD student as well on F1 visa, so that you guys can be comfortable. But really, with the F1 visa thing, if you're a PhD student, the stipends here are good enough, to take care of you and your spouse. But the other thing is health insurance. Most schools don't really, except some top like Kechi was talking about, John Hopkins and Harvard and some of these top guys. They give you comprehensive health insurance and includes your wife, your kids, and all that. But not every school can afford that. So if you're thinking of traveling with your wife and kids, maybe UK or Canada would be a best bet for you. That's the advice I would give. But if your wife is also a scholar like you, she has the academic qualification and she can also apply to PhD, and you find a course that you really want in the US, yeah, give it a shot. You can bring your family.
Okay. I think Canada is friendly. US is kind of shaky for family people. Europe is also very friendly if you are coming in with your family. For example, if you're on Marie Curie Fellowship, you even get extra stipend, allowance for your family. You get extra allowance for your wife and the likes. And also since you are on a work visa, your wife can also get a work visa and also work full time. So yeah, Europe is also friendly if you are coming with family. And yeah, I think the cost of living also is not so bad. And for most cases, if you are doing your PhD, your salary can be really high, even good enough to take care of you and your family and your kids. School fees also is not a problem. In some countries, it is free. I think in most European countries, it is free for young children that are going to school. So your kids can go to school for free. Yeah. So Europe is also Europe, UK is also a good option. When I say Europe, UK is included. So yeah, so there are
Can I add
provisions.
something, Daniel?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me also add to it. I don't know. Let me sell you a small. I know if you go to the UK and let's say as a young couple, you don't have kids, you don't have, you guys are just newly married. If you give birth to a child in the UK, that child is not a citizen yet until maybe after 10 or 11 years in the UK. But in the US, if you're able to bring your wife and you give birth, from the very second that child opens his or her eyes in the world, he or she becomes a US citizen. So that's the little caveat there.
Let me also say that Canada is like that.
You guys have won. Okay, good for you.
But also if you also look at Australia, so Australia has open study, open work permit for your family.
That is great. I mean, there are a lot of possibilities, right? A lot of options, and a lot of interesting stuff. So Israel, you can unmute and ask a question.
Cool. Yeah. Sorry for the other time. I had to do one or two things for my hand here. That was the reason why you could not hear me. So very quickly, yeah, I made a comment when you started your session about the fact that the session didn't focus on programs in the humanities and social sciences because we don't have any laboratory to target. So how do we shoot our shot and all? That's the first question. Then the second question has to do with applying as a master's student. Yeah, Erasmus scholar now. We soon be leaving from one university. We are very unstable. And this instability also couples with the fact that we would have finished with one university while we've not officially completed our program and all. So how do you go about that? Applying? Then if you have a very good, someone spoke about Ivy League schools. Ivy League schools. Yeah, I don't have the first class. But if you have a very good undergraduate result and your master's this thing, of course, you can't predict things. Let's say it's very shaky, more like a very rickety, like a rickety vehicle. Now you combine everything together with your research experience and all, then you drop it like bam. to intimidate the professors that will review your something like that. So that's two, right? The third one. Yeah, I think you were also in France. I'm currently in France. I want to ask, how did you get recommendation letter from your professors? Like, did you go to their office to tell them, sir, this is what or you send them mail, or like you apply to many programs. So did you use the same guy for the same, for all the programs? Because if you are applying to 10 schools and asking one lecturer to be kind of very, very stressful for him. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Vikeshi or Chris want to answer the first question about living from one school to another, right? How do you reflect this in your CV? Right?
Was that question for me or for all of us?
I think it's an open question, apart from the last question, which I will answer about France. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first two are open questions, but I think I'm very sorry. I have forgotten the name of the yeah. So yeah, I think he spoke about Ivy League school. So
okay, yeah, Grace, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah, you mentioned about combining a lot of things together so that your application can be very strong. Yeah, of course you can do that. Personally, before doing the Erasmus program, I had a master's degree from Nigeria after my 6 years GVM. So that was a whole lot already. Then I did Erasmus again, and then so I combined everything. That's what I was talking about when I was talking to, I think, Stella, one of the person who asked the question earlier about well, no, not Stella, someone who asked about applying directly with BSc. Mm-hmm. So you're going to meet this kind of people like me who have this crazy profile about applying with 2 masters or 3 masters for the same program you are applying for with just BSc. So yeah, you can do the same thing. You can apply with all your credentials, like put everything into one, and definitely it's going to work for you. And you said we spoke a lot about laboratory course, and or you didn't like that part because that was not your field.
No, I didn't say I didn't like it. I actually loved it.
Okay, sorry.
It was it's not just it has nothing to do with it. That's it.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think in your field you also have some skills that are needed by researchers in that field. Yes. So you can develop those skills and of course, like carve out your own research interest while reaching out to professors in that field. You know, so you really don't, in our own field, it's purely wet lab. That's why I was talking so much about laboratory, because here if you're applying for PhD and you, like someone who wanted to do cancer research, and you have no skills at all in that regard, you might not be a strong candidate to be given that position. So the same thing in your field, there are some skills that are required by a PhD researcher. So you have to develop this, at least take it to a level, even if you're not a master in that regard. Then Erasmus is not stable, like you said, like you keep going from one country to another and before you get a good rapport with a professor so you could get recommendation from them. So what I did in my case was I didn't use any professor from Erasmus for my recommendation letter. It's my personal decision. Why I did that was because they don't know me long enough to give me a recommendation letter. The basic thing they can talk about, oh, he has good grades, blah 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 blah. That's like generic, right? Because they can already see your results. So why are you still talking about the same thing you're recommending? I need someone to talk about my character, someone to talk about how I can cope while I'm giving a project. So I use people who already knew me from Nigeria, my long-term professors, people who already knew me for like 7 to 10 years, who could write 2 pages about me and not lie, you know. So yeah, those are the people I use. But if you still want to use someone from your program, I will suggest you develop a good rapport with them. If it's possible, shoot them some emails sometimes to talk about their work, you know. And then if you once you see that you have good rapport, because one thing you should note about these white people, they don't know how to lie, so if you ask someone to give a recommendation and he doesn't really know, he's just going to write like three lines or 4 lines, and you're going to shoot yourself on the leg. So yeah, you can either contact people back in your country or build relationship with people you are meeting currently, so you could tap from that eventually. I think that would be that from my side.
Yeah, thank you very much. That helps.
Let me also say something. I see many people are always so worried too much about the skills. You don't have the skills. You don't have the skills. You just have to be truthful. Um, I don't know. I was fortunate anyway to have some. I don't know why, but I did one Marie Curie interview, and I got the position anyway. But this is what happened. They were asking they told me, what are your weaknesses? Now, I told them straight, my weaknesses is that I came to this school, I did my master's, I want to have some lab experiences, but unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I was not able to have the kind of lab experience I wanted to have. I don't have clean room experience, I don't have this experience, I don't have this experience. Now, for those of you that are concerned about the skills you don't have, the first thing you should do is to acknowledge it. Make sure, tell them, see, I don't have this, but I have a capacity to learn. I have learned this and this and this. Even previously, I have learned this and this and this. Yes, I do not have the wet lab skills. Yes, I do not have this. Yes, I do not have this, but I have in me the capacity to learn those things. I know that I'm not a perfect candidate, but I can believe that I can be a perfect candidate if you give me the opportunity. So this is something you have to learn. Like I told you, learn the art of storytelling. You do not need to be the best person to be chosen. You do not need to be a guy with the first class, a guy with this. Shoot your shot, but learn how to tell your stories. Make it clear. Don't make it clear. Your weaknesses, point it out and tell them how you want to work on it. So that's what I want to say. And it opened doors to several opportunities that you may have not expected. Acknowledge your weaknesses.
Okay, thank you very much, Ikeshi. I think the question has already been answered. If I'm to give a personal answer about for my application, I used my supervisor as my referee, and then I had a recommendation letter from one of my professors in France. You asked, how did I get a recommendation letter? So I wrote to this man, yeah, I don't have, it doesn't have so much experience, we don't have so much rapport, but I wrote to this man asking for a recommendation letter, and I actually stated every form of engagement I've had with him, the courses he taught me, what are the things he taught me, how those things are related to the position I was applying to. It was like a very long email that if possible, you just copy and paste it, it will be a recommendation letter on its own. So I tried as much as, there was a particular course he taught us and did some presentation. I talked about that. I talked about how I contributed to my group work and things like this. And when he'll be writing my recommendation letter, he actually reflected these things in the recommendation letter. So if you know that this person does not know you so much, but you of course have had some experience with the professor because he taught you courses, you did some group work under him and things like this. Just make sure that you write a detailed explanation of the kind of experience you've had with him when you're asking for the recommendation letter. This would be like this would be like a kind of base information for him to use when he would be writing his recommendation letter for you. So I hope that answered the question. Okay, you want to say something?
I actually forgot a question I wanted to ask.
Okay, we are out of time. Yeah.
Still directed to the senior scholar in the US. Yeah. How possible is it to apply to like 2 different programs in the same institution in the US?
Well, some schools discourage that.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you apply, they use like a common website. and they don't want to generate like two different student numbers, because once you get into that website and then you input your personal details, it's going to give you like some sort of student number or applicant number, and applying to two different programs. Well, some schools allow that, but not every school. That's just the long and short of that. Some schools will not allow you to do that, but some schools would pile up that. If you're applying for multiple programs, they will pile it up, and based on your preference, and then they can consider you in that sequence. So if you're not considered for the first one, they can move you to the other program, move your file to the other program, and those ones can access you. If they want you, cool. If they don't want you, then they move to the third one. So, but not every school really.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. So we have just 3 other persons left, and these are the only 3 persons we'll be taking questions from, because we are running out of time. So you can always reach out to the facilitators. You can see their name. It's just like that on LinkedIn. You can reach out to them, connect with them, and ask further questions. So I will be allowing Peter to ask his question. So Peter, you can ask a question now. Is Peter ready? Oluwakemi Dada.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm ready.
All right.
I'm sorry, I'm actually that's right. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, my question was, sorry, I really appreciate you guys for this. It's timely for me, I would say. My first question is that I am planning for 4. I didn't apply last year because I want to build up my profile. To have some papers and then to be able to build up some skills. So now I like just some schools that I want to apply to, and one of them is Cornell University. So while looking through the website, the institution said that during the application process, that we don't have to contact any professor, that we should just mention like 2 to 3 professors that we would like to work with in the motivation letter. But I went ahead to contact one of the professors that are working in my line, and just to familiarize myself with the person. And this person referred me back to that thing. So my question is, will it not count against the later on, when you don't have any form of familiarity with anybody when you eventually send in your application? That's one. Then 2, I don't know. I came in late, but I heard that there's someone in the panel who has a DVM, and then is doing immunology with infectious diseases. Well, I also have DVM, and I have Masters of Veterinary Public Health from Nigeria here. But I have bias for. I don't really have back. While in school, I don't really have interest in the laboratory stuff because of the way our laboratory setup was. I was discouraged. So I'm more like a mathematical person. So I did epidemiology and biostatistics, and I shifted away from the lab from there. So there are lots of PhD positions that applied to like 2 years ago, and they kept, these PhD positions are both laboratory components and the mathematical components. And what they keep telling me is that my mathematical side is good, but my life side, that they want a single person. They want someone who can merge both sides together. So I want to ask, is it both, please? I'm not so sure if it's what. I'm also thinking if I can do maybe a course. I wouldn't even mind to do an MSc, just to brush up my immunology, because I don't even, not that I don't know it again, but I know I have drifted away from that path for so long, for like 6-7 years now. I've been doing more of biostatistical things. So I don't know what advice you can give me in that area. And then finally, for trained Dr. Chris, please, I would like to connect with you. There's some things I would like to discuss with you personally. Thank you so much.
Okay. Can Chris just answer him shortly? I believe you can discuss the remaining
Oh my
things
God.
personally.
A lot of questions there. Yeah, I think most of the questions can be answered. You can just reach out to me and I'll answer most of the questions. But for the benefit of everyone here, I will probably answer the first question about because I'll answer that because during my presentation I talked about reaching out to professors before you apply, and I failed to mention that there are actually some schools that would instruct you not to contact anyone. And the reason why they say that is because um, in programs where you have free hand to contact anybody, there are two sources of income or two sources of funding rather. One is that you can get the fellowship from the department, and that takes you for 5 years. It's possible. So you get into the first year with the fellowship, and then you meet a supervisor, and then it takes it over from there. Why you can also get like direct admission, like direct funding from the PI, and then just like Ikechi mentioned, you be under that PI from your very first year, and he's the one who's responsible for whatever funding you're going to be getting. So for those programs that tell you not to contact anyone, they don't need no funding from any PI. There is a fellowship already from the school or the department that covers every PhD student that is admitted. So they have this central funding. So whatever, when you come in, you are told to do 3 rotations. You go around 3 labs. So you spend maybe like 8 weeks in each lab, and then you eventually pick one lab, and then the department will be in charge of your payments, your school fees. So that's the same thing um, that obtains in the square math currently. We're instructed not to contact anyone. So once you get in, you do 3 rotations, and then you eventually pick a lab. And once you get into that lab, your funding is sustained for the next 5 years. So yeah, so there are programs like that. If you have contacted someone and you are scared maybe that's going to affect you, I think you should relax. It won't, because probably you didn't know that, or maybe you saw it and then so for the person to refer you back to that general instruction is just trying to tell you, we don't want any bias in our selection. We just want to pick the very best student for the program, not that a supervisor is, putting words for you during the selection meeting and all that. So yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
So the other questions, they are more related to profession and all that. You can reach out to me, I'll answer them.
Yeah, so don't be afraid that they are not wicked people.
Yeah.
If they only tell you the instruction and that is what they want. So can Oluwa Kemi Dada?
Okay. Good evening. Well, I actually just want to be clear on something. Daniel talked about offers in the EU where you can run your PhD program and work in the industry alongside. So I want to know if it's applicable to the US and Canada also, or it's peculiar to Europe alone.
Okay. All right. So this is peculiarly to Europe. It's not doing your PhD and working with the industry. The thing is, you are doing your PhD right there in the industry. These companies, they have their labs, or it could also be a government or research institution. So you are doing your PhD. They'll be the one to employ you. They'll be the one to be paying your salary. So you're like a staff to them. So it's only available in Europe, to the best of my knowledge. Am I right, Chris and Ikechi? Do we have this in the US?
For US, yeah, if you're in my field, for example, so what I did, I can use myself as an example. What I did was, for my 3 rotations, I was looking out for this sort of opportunities where you could get into a lab that is connected to the government or something. So I saw someone working with the USDA, and then I rotated in a lab. Basically, she doesn't take PhD students who are like admitted by the university. She looks out for her own students, then admits them, brings them in to the US, and then they'll be in a lab working on working in the USDA lab till they graduate. But I reached out to her and then she accepted me, and so I'll be working in that lab now for the next. I've already spent like 1 year for the next 4 years. So yeah, we have kind of the same a little bit in the US, but I think it's more pronounced in Europe where you can be sponsored by a company to do a PhD directly.
Right, thank you. And secondly, for the US, like, does it have to be 5 years, even if you have your MSc?
So I see a lot of, I think I see a lot of that question in the comment section. People asking, why are you spending 5 years again when you already have these lots of masters and all? So, so yeah, in the US, it's like the general principle. PhD really is 3 years. You know, PhD is 3 years or maximum 4 years in UK, and I think the same for Canada too. But because in the US, like I think I explained that earlier, the general thing is they take people who are like fresh graduates and then put them through graduate school. So they call it graduate school, which is 5 years standard. Whether you have PhD before, you have masters before, it really doesn't matter. You go through that 5 years. So their intention is for the first 2 years, you're learning didactic courses that would prepare you for core research for the last 3 years. So you still have, you can't just come and then jump into. So, but what other people do is they go through the first 2 years, and then once they start their research, they quickly rush it because you're over prepared for that section. So you quickly rush your research and publish enough paper for you to apply for graduation. So you can do that. It's not compulsory you get to that the 5th year. It's not as if it's sacrosanct, like you must do 5 years. Once you've gone through the first 2 years, you can collapse your research period to like 2 years and apply for graduation. I've seen people who have graduated within 4 years in the US, of course.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with Lalekon. So you don't need to spend, that's the time, but you don't need to spend that. So if you're serious, you can do it in less time. I know people that did in 3 point something years. I know somebody that did a PhD in Canada in 2.5 years. So it's all about you. And like I said, make sure that you find out from your supervisor that the person is not so hell-bent on the time something, and the person is much more result-oriented rather than time-oriented. If the person is result-oriented, you can do it. Like I have a friend, he started this research while he was doing his coursework from his first year in US in PhD. And by the time he finished his PhD, he came out with 15 publications. Like the guy, they had no reason to leave him. So it's all about, if you want to take it slowly, take it slow and do it for 5 years. If you want to go boom, 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 go boom, 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 and do it in 3 years or 5 years. Depends on you.
Thank you.
And your supervisor.
Lastly, like, okay, what if after your MSc you don't want to go for a PhD straight and you want to work in the industry? Like, what are the chances?
In which country?
Like, okay, in the country listed, either in Europe, US, or Canada.
Yeah, I think you always find opportunities after your master's if you don't want to do a PhD, whether in Europe, in US, or in Canada. There are always job opportunities. For example, out of my 10 colleagues that were on the SmartNet program on the same mobility, I was the only one that went forward for a PhD. Every other person decided to apply to some other job, and they are working right now. Some of them are system engineers, some of them are software engineers and different positions. So you will surely find opportunities after masters if you don't want to go forward for a PhD. Right? Even in US and Canada, you will find opportunities. These countries are not necessary. They're not like Nigeria where things are so hard. Yeah. So.
Right. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, you are welcome. And Shibuzo Indamati, yeah, you can ask your question.
Hello, good day. For myself, I'm mostly interested in industrial PhD. So I want to ask, is it a limitation, for example, if in terms of my reference, that my references are from the industrial side and not maybe more from the academical side, like maybe industrial side in terms of the places I've worked for before I started my master's program. So is it like a disadvantage if I don't have maybe an academic referee? And secondly, I want to ask with respect to these European studies, like for example, these research institutions that Daniel, you made mention of, for example, if someone does not have the language experiences, like maybe in France, you cannot speak French, or in Germany, you can't speak German, or is that like a limitation if you don't speak the language to be able to get this industrial PhD funding?
Okay, so generally language is not a limitation. I haven't seen any application that require me to know the language. So research in Europe is done in English. That is, your fellow researchers are also people from different parts of the world. So the only way all of you get to talk with each other is through English. Also, your research work, your thesis, all these things are going to be in English. Your publications, your patents, all these things are going to be in English. So there's no limitation on language when you're making your application. No limitation in any way. So your English is English. English is the senior language in the world, and in Europe as well, regardless of their local language, English is the language of research. So, and also, we're talking about using industrial referees. Industrial referees is when I talk about doing your PhD in industry, it's not the kind of thing you do in it's not like the regular engineer job, right? It is research aspect of the company. And even when they are trying to employ you to do your PhD for industrial PhD, they are interested in your research experience, your academic experience, not your field work experience. This is not what they are interested in. Because you can do your research you can have an industrial PhD and you never even as an engineer, touch anything, any equipment. Everything you'll be doing will be mathematical formulations and algorithm development. So I would advise that even if you are applying to an industrial PhD, use professors as your referees and also researchers. So if, for example, you've worked in a company research department, not the ones that are losing boats and joining cables. So if you've worked in the research department of a company where they have PhD holders that are full-time researchers, they can also give you recommendations. So for example, in France, if you are doing your master thesis, mostly you do it in a company and you do it in the research department of the company. So you can get people from there to give you recommendations. Yeah. So I think that answers the question. And this will be all for today. I mean, we are already rolling into 3 hours. I think I must thank everybody that stayed with us up to now, as the very beautiful 78 people, of which I'm 2 persons myself because I'm connected on 2 devices. And I also want to very much thank Grace because these people, they are on PhD. I know the kind of hits that they are probably passing through. I'm also passing through some hits as well. And definitely, I was trying to see if I can dodge this event, but some people keep reaching out, and I just say, why not? Let's do it. So I want to thank Grace. I want to thank Ikechi for making themselves available for this. Sure now so many of you guys can even reach out to them on their LinkedIn or in some other places. And I'm sure they will respond to you as well. So I'll be sharing the recordings, the video recording, the slides. I have the 3 slides with me. I'm sure I have the permission of Grace and Ikechi to share these things. On my own slide, you will see several links which you can click on for whatever thing you need it for. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. And so here is to the end of the webinar. Thank you very much.